We're back with NBA coverage, and in this one, I will be covering all of the action that took place after the All-Star break ended. And just to briefly touch on it, shit sucked. This shit sucked. I mean, you have to give credit to Tyler Hero for getting the victory in the three-point contest. Obviously, Mac McClung getting the three-peat in the dunk contest. But it sucked. The overall product is still just awful. I mean, there was a little more effort, but you also had other people ripping into the fact that there was so much promotion and very little action going on all around it. It was just a terrible product. And they're really, as they move on in the future, going to have to figure out how the hell to structure this thing. But again, with the dunk contest, it's like, man, it is a slap in the face that a guy who consistently gets sent down to the G League, and he's still with the G League squad for the Magic, that guy is a three-peat winner, the very first to do so in NBA history for the dunk contest. Meanwhile, all these other superstar caliber players who have the ability to dunk their asses off in the flashiest of ways still won't participate. Like, them niggas have got to wake up. If that doesn't motivate a few players who can get up high like that and elevate over the rim to enter, I don't know what will at this point. But to get into the actual action, all right, we'll start out with the Hawks. And they have gone after the All-Star break 1-4. They're currently the 9th seed in the Western Conference. They do have a chance to be in the play-in, but man, I don't understand. They have literally scored over 100 points in every single one of their losses. Think about that. Their only win during this time came with them scoring just 98 points against the Heat on February 24th. And this certainly was not a Trae Young game in the slightest. I mean, he definitely struggled when it came to shooting the basketball. Luckily for him, despite shooting 4 of 14 from the field and not making a single three-pointer, 14 assists was more than enough. He had only 4 turnovers, and other players got involved. Caris LeVert has been a solid addition for them over the course of this time. And they also had pretty good contributions from George Niang and Trey Mann in this game, with them getting 15 and 11 points, respectively. As for how these other games have gone, I mean, just atrocious. Like, the Magic were able to get past them a little bit, despite Trae Young putting up 38 points on the 20th. And then in another game, back-to-back games, with them playing the Pistons this time, Trae Young had another offensive outburst in this one, as he honestly played one of the best games you could ask for. Sure, 10 of 24 shooting and 6 of 15 from outside ain't necessarily the flashiest, but when you look at it, the man put up 38 points and 13 assists, while keeping this game as close as he possibly could have. Too bad for them, though, that nobody, I don't know what it is, as a team, they just cannot defend to save their lives. Like, 7 turnovers certainly don't help your cause, but at the same time, you mean to tell me that you allow the Pistons to put up 148 points in this ball game as a team? Cade Cunningham essentially dueled off with him, which makes perfect sense. But then you allow other players like Malik Beasley and even Dennis Schroeder to get going as well. Fucking Tim Hardaway Jr. sparking up from the outside. Like, that makes no sense. How is that? all those extra buckets converted by them. And then they just got dominated in the paint completely, with allowing a 14-point advantage, tipping in the Pistons' favor. Like, just, it's craziness, man. They would then, after that lone win against the Heat, they lost the back-to-back by 22 with a score of 131 to 109. Just absolutely absurd. Yet again, Trae Young did not have an optimal game at all. And seeing as he is still very much the engine of that offense, you can't really expect them to try to keep up with teams if he's off. And that's their problem. They quite literally cannot defend to save their lives. Everything hinges on their offensive production. And if it's non-existent, they're going to continue to have games like this. Like, they allowed them to shoot damn near 55% from the three-point line. They won the battle in the paint, but that really didn't matter by the end of the ball game. And then also on the 28th, they lost to the Thunder with a final score of 135 to 119. Just more of the same here. Like, the box score doesn't necessarily tell the whole story, but obviously with the Thunder being one of the stronger teams in the NBA, you can't afford to have too many mistakes made against them. And all the little things just completely went to the wayside, allowing the Thunder to take it over. Yet again, Trae Young, just 5 of 14 shooting. Like, he's going to have to find that rhythm again if they want to turn it around. Like I said, they're in the play-in, so they're kind of set. And also, bottom half of the conference is not necessarily good as a whole, but it is going to take them going on a winning streak to kind of breathe a little bit. Honestly, with how inconsistent they have been, probably going to come all the way down to the final few games of the season for them to really make enough traction in the standings. Moving on to the Celtics, they went 3-2 over the course of the last few games after the All-Star break, and it's been a very interesting time for them. All things, 3-3 actually. It's been very interesting for them. Like, you get the easy win against the 76ers to start things out, which I watched. I mean, literally, the 76ers have just been a team in limbo. They are just in a constant freefall. Like, even with them being at somewhat full strength with Joel Embiid playing, that didn't really do much of anything. I mean, the Celtics were in full control of it through and through. There's literally no other way to say it. They had complete and total momentum. Jason Tatum had literally, like I said, the easiest triple-double of his life. 15 damn points, 11 rebounds, and 10 assists. He didn't necessarily shoot the ball the greatest, and honestly, he didn't fucking have to. You had Peyton Pritchard just really trying to stamp his case for the 6th Man of the Year award with 28 points off the bench in this particular game on 10 of 18 shooting and 8 threes. Of course, the Celtics were going to win this battle. I mean, anytime you just have a team chucking up three-pointer after three-pointer and making 24 of them on relatively solid efficiency with 44.4%, and then they also have good enough defense to hold the 76ers to just 20.5% shooting from deep in under 10 3-pointers made, game totally was going to go in their favor. 76ers could do whatever they wanted in the paint, but they were getting spaced out of the game. Their next match would come against the Knicks, which I also watched, and that would yield yet another win for them. This was the first matchup between the Knicks and the Celtics in their storied history where they both had a 65% winning percentage or higher after the All-Star break since 1973. But with the way that they have just been doing the Knicks this entire season, you would not know that they are, or at the time they were, the third best team in the Eastern Conference. I mean, what the fuck? Like, to start out the game, you get blitzed out of the fucking... you get blitzed out of TD Garden in the first fucking quarter with a 38-19 advantage going in Boston's favor. And then by the end of the half, it was fucking 64-43. So them getting 105 points, they granted, to their credit, they did make things a little interesting later on in the third quarter and early on in the fourth. They brought it down to a 5-point ball game. They did. But that still was not enough. And ultimately, the Celtics would win it with a score of 118-105, as Jason Tatum had another near triple-double with 25 points, 9 assists, and 10 rebounds. 8 of 20 shooting, though, on another rough night. But you had help from other guys. Derek White just consistently hitting shots, and also Jaylen Brown getting in there for 24 points on 10 of 21 shooting and 8 rebounds. Then they would take on the Raptors and win that pretty easily. That one I didn't watch, but obviously, Celtics are the stronger basketball team. The Raptors are, again, they're bottom feeders. They're naturally going to beat their ass. Like, that's not hard to imagine. I mean, they literally, in this game, I didn't even watch it, and I can tell you that they were not trying. They didn't give a fuck. For them to shoot 51 threes in this ball game, they made just 15. And they still, again, defensively, had the advantage because Toronto decided that they were going to try to one-up that, and they would shoot 5 of 33 from three-point range in this ball game with just a 15.2% clip of efficiency. I mean, they had no Porzingis. That still didn't matter. Like, they could afford to just throw fucking Torrey Craig in there to start and just get away with it completely. But you had solid games from Jason Tatum with, again, another 19-point and 11 assist ball game for him, trying to defer to his teammates because, again, a 7 of 18 night shooting from the field is just not optimal. So as much as people would want to give him a nod for MVP, it's like with the way that some of the other players in the top 5 for odds right now have been playing consistently throughout the season, and for him to be going through one of these rougher stretches right now, it hurts his case a little bit. But again, Peyton Pritchard with 20 off the bench, Derek White with 22 points on 7-15 shooting and 6 threes, and also Jaylen Brown with another 24-point outing. No threes made, but 10 of 18 shooting from the field and 4 free throws. We then get to this rough portion, this very rough portion of the schedule for them. They would lose back-to-back ball games in rather gut-wrenching ways. they played against the Pistons on February the 26th, and it should be noted, okay, that the game was tied at 55 at the end of the first half. The Pistons would eventually run away with the game with a final score of 117-97. They got done in completely. They did fine shooting from the three-point line. I mean, 42.9% is great, but that's until you realize that they couldn't get shit done in the paint at all. Just 20 points in the paint. And also from general shooting inside the three-point arc. Yeah, try 12 of 31 shooting inside the three-point arc. And then you compare that to Detroit getting 34 makes out of 56 and gashing them in the paint with a 42-point advantage in the restricted area. Once more, you can look at the numbers. You can see Tatum put up 27 points. You can see Derek White with 18. You can see Peyton Pritchard with 18. But ultimately, that's what the game came down to. They were weaker physically. They ran the hell out of Detroit. So, to kind of stay within the conference, I suppose, they would just take their asses right back home and try to make this stand against the Cavs. Now, they'd been balling out against the Cavs all season long. There have been some close matches, but they would normally come out on top of them. And this game I watched part of. I was spoiled with what happened at the very end. But to preface everything with how things started out, let's just say that the Cavs were sluggish. I think even calling them sluggish might be an understatement. Okay, before the halfway mark of the first quarter even hits, they're down 25-3. They couldn't get a shot going over that stretch. And they tried to put a dent in things a little bit. They were still down by double digits after that point, after giving up a 38-point first quarter to the Celtics, okay? Cavs are down. They did try to make some strides to storm back, and they eventually got it within single digits, but the Celtics would try to turn it up again. And so you get to the third quarter, and the Celtics do still retain the lead. But now all of a sudden, with Donovan Mitchell completely stepping up his game, and also Darius Garland just doing a great job of generating offense, Ty Jerome's hitting shots, Sam Merrill's getting some shots to go, and then all of a sudden, you have the ball game getting tied up. Then, with contributions from Evan Mobley and Donovan Mitchell in a back and forth brouhaha, the Cavs retake the lead. And then we get down to the point where I get in and watch the last couple of minutes or so, Darius Garland clutching it up with what was, at that point, the dagger. You would have Jason Tatum try to get a shot to go, but he airballed it. And, yeah. They were previously, the Celtics coming into this ballgame, 26-0 after leading by 20 points or more in a ballgame. Cavs would give them their first loss in that situation this season. And they would also finally get over the hump in beating this team, with Donovan Mitchell going absolutely nuts, which I'll get to in a second. But if they would have won this game, it will look a lot better. I was saying that Jason Tatum was kind of hurting his MVP case. Well, let's just say that this kind of ball game breathes more life into it once again. He had 46 points in this ball game on 19 of 37 shooting while getting 16 rebounds and also 9 assists with just 3 turnovers. And the Celtics, they definitely put the fucking stops on them, but only 5 other players outside of Jason Tatum scored in this ball game. One of the most prolific being Jaylen Brown, getting 37 points of his own on 13 of 24 shooting. So that's a solid game for him. But Donovan Mitchell and the squad had their number completely. So then we get on to this game against the Nuggets yesterday that I watched most of. When I got in there during the second quarter, the Nuggets had just no shot. Apparently. I was trying to track it, and they just got down by double digits so fast. They were able to pull off a 9-2 run as I was making my way in there, though. But ultimately, Cked would get another bucket to go before ending off the half with a final score of 61-48. Then you would get into the third quarter where the Nuggets would make some progress because of just horrible play offensively from the Celtics and also a little bit of regression on defense. Now they would take it back, attempt to at least, after this stretch. Because again, in this time, they had gone up by 20. So you mean to tell me after entering Friday night with a 26-0 record after being up by 20, you were in danger of losing 2 consecutive ball games in this situation? But their shooting would heat up yet again. And ultimately, with the defensive intensity ramping up at the most optimal point of time, the Celtics would win the ball game with a final score of 110-103, giving them their 4th win out of 6 games in this stretch. Don't know why I said 3-3. But that's neither here nor there. The Tatum experience, again, it's a bit of a roller coaster right now. I mean, it's a great team win against a tough opponent, but 16 points on 4-15 shooting with 11 rebounds and 7 assists just makes it to where those odds for a potential MVP are consistently fluctuating. There's no reason for that kind of performance. But he did get the win with the help of Al Horford getting 19 points and also Derek White getting 17. Jaylen Brown led the way with 22, though. 5 rebounds, 8 assists, 2 steals, and 2 damn blocks on 6 of 15 shooting. They remain the second team, with the second seed in the Eastern Conference. A little bit of regression there with those losses against the Pistons and Cavs for sure. But they're starting to understand just how important things are becoming as we are now into March. They're probably going to have some promo for St. Patrick's Day or something, even though they don't even play. And, hey, going into April, May, potentially June, they understand what's at stake. So if you can have games where Tatum doesn't perform the best and he still is able to find other ways to affect winning, ultimately that's going to triumph over all else. Moving on to the Nets, who would go 1-5 over this stretch. They would manage to beat the 76ers again, With a score of 105 to 103, is Cameron Johnson will lead the way in that one, which was played in Philadelphia with 23 points. And really, when looking further into this ball game, they got away with murder. Okay, for them to shoot just 25% from the three-point line. In any other normal situation against a potentially better basketball team, they don't stand a chance. But they brought the 76ers down to their level defensively, and that ultimately helped them. They had the advantage in the paint, and that definitely came through with Nicholas Claxton getting his first ever game winner and hitting what would be the putback floater to win the ball game at the end. He would have 16 points, 9 rebounds, 3 assists, and also 5 blocks, showing some intensity on the defensive side of the basketball. If only he would keep that consistent throughout the season, people definitely would not view him in the way that they do. But with that being said, that was certainly one of the highlights of their stretch of games here. The only other one would come on the 26th when they would face off against the Thunder. They actually had a lead, a sizable lead, against the Thunder, giving them a run for their money. I mean, 76 points were the most that the Thunder defense had given up in the first half throughout this season. But their offense, and with that being said, the Thunder's defense just heated up as the Nets cooled down, only mustering 45 points in the next half of play. I mean, they had the advantage everywhere. You think that they would win the ball game with holding the Thunder to just 61 points in the first, and also having an advantage of 14 in three-pointers made with 23 on 61 damn attempts, not to mention. But with the Thunder just imposing their will in the paint and also getting to the foul line at timely moments, being opportunistic when they could be in the next half of play, Thunder got the victory there. Day'Ron Sharpe had a career-high, career-best ball game with 25 points, 15 rebounds, and 5 assists, 2 steals, and 3 blocks. On 8 of 10 shooting, he even hit 2 threes. That's pretty fucking good. And I mean, they also have Killian Hayes here as a guy putting up 19 points and 7 assists with just 2 turnovers. I guess you'll take it. I mean, he can't be much worse than Ben Simmons at this point. So honestly, I knew that Killian Hayes obviously was picked up by this team. But it makes sense to try to incorporate him into the squad, I think. You know, it's a very low-risk, high-reward situation to where, you know, having Ben Simmons and being forced to eventually buy him out, that hurts you so badly. You're rebuilding anyways. You don't lose much by taking a chance on Killian Hayes. You would just hope that his 5 of 10 shooting in this ballgame would be consistent. I don't think I can necessarily attest to that being the case. I mean, they even lost to the Wizards for fucking crying out loud. Okay, they lost to the Cavs 110-97 to start it out. And then in this Wizards match, it's just, oh boy, like, yeah, Killian Hayes. This next damn game, season put up just 7 points on 2 of 7 shooting. It was just a single 3 made. He did get 8 dimes though, but like, Right, Zaire Williams is with this team. He put up 19 points to lead the way. Cameron Johnson had 17 points as well, but they were still no match for the Wizards. That just doesn't even make sense for me to say. They lost to the Trailblazers by 19. With a score of 121 to 102. Killian Hayes would have 16 points in this ball game on 5 of 8 shooting and 2 of 3 from beyond the arc. Nick Claxton even had 16 points, but just 5 boards. Pretty paltry for a big man, if I do say so myself. They would get Cameron Thomas back, though. He did not have the greatest outing. He didn't make a 3-point attempt. He did have 16 assists. The Spurs started in a long time, so, there's a little bit of a pass there, right? Like, I can't say too much about that. And then to open up March, they would lose to the Pistons by 21. 115 to 94. They made 30 free throws as a team, but also as a team, they shot just 30.5% from the field. And they shot just 15.4% from beyond the arc. Now, they were an opportunistic defense. They did force 23 turnovers and scored 24 points off of them. But if your rate of conversion on those opportunities is that terrible, you likely do not stand a chance. And they got boat raced. Anytime Tyrese Martin is coming into a ball game off the bench and leading you in scoring with 23 points, averaging a point a minute, you're not winning. Now, it did not help as well that, they just stick out like a sore thumb. Keon Johnson and Cameron Johnson fucking bricked everything. They combined from the field to score just 23 points and shoot 6 of 35. Cameron Johnson went 0 of 10 from the 3-point line. 0 of 10. Oh my gosh, that is like you can see exactly why they are where they are. They're still the 12th team in the Eastern Conference. They're here. They're here. They are in a rebuild and they are fully embracing it. Oh my gosh, that is atrocious as shit, dude. I did not anticipate that it was gonna stick out like a sore thumb like that, man. God damn. 3 of 20 and 3 of 15 for 2 dudes, man. No wonder you lost. At that point, you probably are better off deferring to somebody else. But at what cost? At what cost? Oh my goodness, that is horrible, dude. That is actually fucking stink. Moving on to the Hornets. They went winless. They went winless. They did manage to put 115 points up on the Nuggets defense, but allowed 129, even with Miles Bridges getting 36 points, 13 rebounds, and 7 assists in this ball game on February 20th against Denver. You fucking wasted it because you literally don't match up. I mean, no LaMelo in this one. They had Elfrid Payton coming in off the street. They're giving Yusuf Nurkic real minutes because they don't really have anybody else at this point. They're playing some of the more random players out there. Josh Green, I don't even think Josh Green appeared in a game in a while. And he comes in and puts up 19 points, sure, but there's a lot going on there. And none of it's positive. I mean, this stretch from February 22nd against Portland up until their last ball game to open up March against the Wizards saw them fail to reach 100 points as an offense in any single one of these games. They got beaten by 53 against the Trailblazers on February 22nd, helping them set a franchise record for margin of victory. And then they lost by 42 points to the Kings. Now, they had LaMelo Ball back in this one, but did it matter? Fuck no. He struggled. 13 points, 13 shots, and 6 free throws. Nick Smith Jr. didn't do much to help with that. Though they were both starting, I don't know why that is. That's a little weird to me. You're asking for... That is just a hell of a backcourt. Every single offense who plays against that backcourt is licking their chops. Like, I'd rather you at that point start Elfrid Payton. I'm not going to lie to you. You know Elfrid Payton can provide defense for you. I'd rather start him at that point. And honestly, with the way that the Kings players played, they certainly needed to try to make that adjustment. But I will definitely get to how they performed later on. I'm not going to do that now and spoil it for them. Because they got to get their own space. The Warriors were also able to beat them by 36 with once more. I'm not going to spoil that one just yet. But anytime you can enter a ball game with KJ Simpson shooting 7 of 18 from the field and still leading you in points with 16, there's a problem. Nick Smith Jr. bricked everything. Miles Bridges shot 2 for 11. And this one guy, Damian Baugh, not familiar with him, even he shot 2 of 13 from the field. In what fucking world should he be shooting that much? I don't fucking know. The Hornets are just on a completely different planet, I guess. And then the Mavericks game, they made it closer and Mark Williams went off. I mean, he had by himself 26 points and 16 rebounds on 10 of 18 shooting. And Miles Bridges, though 9 of 24 shooting is inefficient, he also had 20 points and 12 rebounds and 6 assists. But it still was not enough to overcome Mavericks, who would take the victory here with a score of 103-96. They lost to the Wizards to open up March with a score of 113-100. Almost every single player that touched the court for the Wizards, outside of Keyshawn George, scored in double digits. Doesn't even matter about efficiency there. You have that happening. That is great team basketball. It also is glaring that the difference is literally made up by free throws. Even with the Hornets doing their damage in the paint, you gave up 17 free throws, and they made 16 of them, creating a 12-point advantage there alone. Mark Williams had 24 points and 12 rebounds on 11-14 shooting, but everyone else is just off. Everything seems to be off at this point. It's fucking Charlotte. Are we being serious right now? That's obvious. Moving on to the Bulls, they have been 2-4 since the All-Star break. Now, some of these have definitely been close losses. They lost to the Knicks by 2. They lost to the Suns by 4, and they lost to the Clippers by 5. With that being said, however, they did get a pretty good win against the 76ers, scoring 142 points and giving up just 110. it also should be worth noting that over this entire stretch, Josh Giddey has been on a tear. I mean, as far as this game goes, he's got 25 points, 16 rebounds, and 6 assists in this one on 8 of 11 shooting and 3 of 3 from beyond the arc, when this man's weakness was shooting, just through and through. Kevin Huerter balled out in this game with 23 points, and Zach Collins even made a return, getting 19 points of his own. So it's cool to see that some of the role players for the Bulls have stepped up, but they are still heavily outmatched against stronger teams, obviously. I mean, before their loss to the Pacers by 15 damn points, with Tyrese Haliburton going stupid, they did get a win in overtime against the Raptors. Now, it should be worth noting that Coby White did help them get there with a 4-point play with around 4 seconds left on the clock. And from there, they outscored the Raptors 15-5 in overtime to get the win. In this one, Josh Giddey would have 19 points, 12 assists, and 8 rebounds, along with Zach Collins getting 15 points, 13 rebounds, 5 assists. Coby White obviously led the way with 24 as well. They are currently 10th in the Eastern Conference. They're just very much on the fringe. But I just don't know how much better things are really going to get for them. Moving on to the Cavs. Boy, they have just continued to turn it up. They eventually reached 50 wins with the tear that they've been on. They, since the All-Star break, are 6-0. Pretty much winning convincingly for most of these. For most of them. I mean, a 13-point win against the Nets, against the Knicks. Watching this game live, oh boy. Again, like I said, with the way that the Knicks play against the best teams in the NBA, you wouldn't even think that they're in the upper echelon of squads in the league. Like, this particular game on February 21st was a 37-point Cavs win. Or they won by 37. And scored 142 total points while giving up just 105. Knicks, when it counted, couldn't do a goddamn thing. Even though the box score will tell you that Jalen Brunson and Karl-Anthony Towns had solid ball games. Nobody else got anything going, and the Cavs just had their way completely. Shooting 60.9% from the field and 51.4% from beyond the arc, getting a 17 point advantage in fast break points, and also an advantage of 28 in terms of points in the paint. They could literally shoot from just about any damn where, and it was guaranteed to go in. In this one, Donovan Mitchell had 27. Evan Mobley had 21 points. You had Ty Jerome get 19 points off the bench. You had Craig Porter Jr. get 13 points off the bench. And you even had DeAndre Hunter go 4-4 from beyond the arc and get 16 points of his own. Despite Darius Garland not even registering double digits in this ballgame, it really had no effect on their ability to just get shit done in this game. Now, their next match, they would face off against the Grizzlies and get a solid 129-123 victory. Then, you know, like that one is certainly like good. I mean, it did come down to the wire. The Grizzlies tried their best to make it interesting in the final few minutes, but ultimately they couldn't overcome some of their terrible struggles throughout the night. No Darius Garland in this one, absolutely no problem. Ty Jerome with another great game off the bench, 26 points, 3 of 7 from beyond the arc, and 9 of 16 overall, with just a single turnover. Meanwhile, DeAndre Hunter had 12 points, despite not making a 3. You also had Donovan Mitchell contribute 33 points, and you had Evan Mobley with a very credible 25 points, 13 rebounds, and 8 assists against a man, Jaren Jackson Jr., who is likely the favorite for the Defensive Player of the Year odds, given what I will be talking about as it pertains to the Spurs. Though if you follow basketball, you already have a solid understanding of exactly what the fuck is happening. I would beat the shit out of the Magic because, of course, 122 to 82. No question about that. Like, oof. Oh my gosh. That was a game that was nationally televised as well. For the Magic's sake, I guess that's why they're not. Again, they had yet another game where they had pretty good shooting splits. This time, they shot 56.2% from the field and also 59.4% from beyond the arc, with better free throw percentage as well, while holding the Magic, who remain the worst three-point shooting team in the NBA, to just 17.9% from 3. They also got great points in transition, getting 23 points off of 10 Magic turnovers. And also doing an incredible job of crashing the glass. You will look and see that the starters didn't necessarily have the most optimal game. You would never think that Donovan Mitchell could put up just 11 points in a ball game and the Cavs would still win. But that's just how this team basketball shit goes. And if you can have those games like that, that conserves a player like Donovan Mitchell for those very important marquee level games that are bound to come later on in the season. So even with that, with 5 different players in double digits and that efficient shooting, little did they know that kind of effort to conserve Donovan Mitchell would come in the very next game, which I mentioned earlier, against the Celtics. They needed every single ounce of potential contributions from their star players, and they more than got it, led by none other than Donovan Mitchell, who in this game had 41 points on 13 of 26 shooting and 5 of 12 from 3, with some of those three-pointers playing a huge role in the run that the Cavs eventually went on to close out the ball game and get the victory. Very important shots hit by him. And as I mentioned earlier, Darius Garland finished off the job. Now, he did shoot 9 of 23 from the field for 20 points. Not necessarily the most efficient, but he hit the shot that sealed the deal. So you have to credit him with that. Then, to open up March, they would get themselves in a very interesting game here. Like I said, the other ones were convincing. This one just completely blindsided me. It took them having to put up a 40-point quarter in the fourth and also come back from a huge deficit to knock off the Trailblazers in overtime with a score of 133 to 129. I kid you not, I was just tracking this game. I was wondering why the hell the shit was that fucking close. And then as the score just increased, I was about to completely lose my mind. Like, there's no way that you're allowing a team like Portland to hold a lead of 18 on you. Right? Like, that's just so fucking off-putting. I couldn't fathom it. But they did work themselves back into it. And eventually, to tie up the ball game, you did get Anthony Simons in there responding to a made free throw from Darius Garland and send it to overtime, where they instantly just got down to business, and they would take back the lead with the help of DeAndre Hunter getting 5 points in a couple of possessions, while also ending off the game with a couple of free throws. Now, from what I had seen on the ticker, he had a cold first half. A very cold first half. Just 4 points, and eventually he went off for 28 points over the course of the rest of the ball game, getting 32 with 5 made threes on 8 of 15 shooting, and also he went 11 of 12 from the straight. Ty Jerome also had 25 points off of the bench on 8 of 17 shooting. So it's just interesting. Like, yes, as good as the Cavs are, they shouldn't be in a fucking pissing contest with the Trailblazers. But with this game, not seeing Donovan Mitchell play at all, and to have them hang in there like that, come from behind, face that adversity, and win the ball game, that does speak volumes to where they're at. They are by far the best team in the Eastern Conference. And they've definitely got one of the top records in the NBA. Now again, different pundits have been questioning the legitimacy of this Cleveland team when it comes to the postseason. Obviously, they are going to have to really assert themselves this year as a legitimate contender, because they had been given that credit over the past couple of years, but they didn't go on anything substantial in terms of any sort of run. They ended before they even got started. So who would take them seriously, right? But shit, I'm just saying, just watch out. You can't sleep on them. All right. Moving on to the Mavericks. This team went 2-3 after the All-Star break. They did get a good win against an albeit terrible Pelicans team with a score of 111 and 103 on February 21st. Obviously, Najee Marshall gets his revenge, and Kyrie Irving went off in this ballgame with 35. Now, this next match on the 23rd against the Golden State Warriors, which was nationally televised, saw Kyrie Irving absolutely struggle. And when he struggled, the team as a whole went to complete and total shit. He performed like, oh my gosh. Like, it's hard to explain. He didn't do anything in the first half. He did nothing. It was so unreal. I'm not gonna lie to you. And combine that struggle on his end with the fact that Klay Thompson also went scoreless in the first half, and they put him on a goddamn graphic as an impact player. Then the Warriors also happened to go on a 29-7 overall run that ended up creating some early distance in the ball game, and the Mavericks would suffer a 126-102 loss. After that, there was something great in store for the Warriors, but it would just continue to get worse for the Mavs before it got better. They would face the new look Los Angeles Lakers in LA. Just a mere 20 plus days or so removed from the trade heard around the fucking world. We knew what time it was even before the game started. Niggas were out for revenge and an opportunity to prove themselves. And somebody was gonna go out completely terrible on this end. Was it going to be the Mavericks, or was Luka Doncic going to be the loser here? The answer to that question is no. And as a matter of fact, he was a big winner. But more on his contributions when I actually get around to talking about the Lakers. Mavericks as a whole just completely crumbled. When they needed timely stops, they couldn't get anything. At all. And as a result, they lost this game. The first time seeing Luka Doncic not as a part of your squad, you lost to him. You folded. They just were not efficient. Just 35.7% from the field, even though they were a better three-point shooting team. It also would have helped them to get to the foul line a little more, but at the end of the day, you allowed the Lakers to keep a lot of possessions alive with them being able to crash the glass and also impose their will inside. Like, what I will say is that he didn't have the best shooting night, but Doncic was just able to get some tough-ass buckets on them. Same for LeBron. Like, just weak interior defensive play. That's never going to help you. Kyrie Irving had 35 points in this one on 12 of 27 shooting, but it wasn't enough. Even with Klay Thompson's 22 points and 5 threes, you still had struggles everywhere else. Players missing shots left and right. PJ Washington, despite having 10 rebounds, 5 assists, a steal, and 4 blocks, man missed all 9 of his shots and didn't put up a single point. In a game as contested as that, something of note would have been useful. Something. Anything. And they didn't get it. But oh shit would culminate in this March 1st match against the Bucks, where they just get completely boat raced. Completely boat raced. Like, 9 of 23 shooting for Kyrie Irving for 31 points is alright. But then you're allowing the Bucks to just completely tear you apart in every sense of the imagination. Like, goddamn, as a team, the Bucks went to the line 35 times. Like, at that point, that is undisciplined defense. Yes, there can be some ticky-tack calls here and there. I get it. But, like, really? That just slows the game down. And it aids the Bucks even more. Not to mention that they made for more three-pointers more effectively. And also hit more shots generally. You're helping them at that point. But of course, granted, with having to put Moses Brown, the third, in the ballgame to make up for the fact that you don't have Gafford, AD, or Lively, that's certainly going to hurt your defensive efficiency. Makes sense. And Dwight Powell even got playing time in that game. That ain't going to do shit. Now, I'm not going to necessarily cover the other game, but I do have to veer into some general shit about this fucking team right now, because they are actually losing their minds, and shit, if it wasn't already drastic down there, it's getting terrible now. Now, in a game that I'll probably talk about in the next video in terms of actual logistics, Kyrie Irving would exit the game early with a severe lower body injury in the leg. Severely. He couldn't move. He couldn't move whatsoever. To even try and get up looked like it was a pain for him to do. Now, he was fouled on the play, so dudes had to carry him to the foul line for him to shoot a pair of free throws. Sunk them both, and then he was helped out of the game. It would be later revealed that same night, or the day after, that he would be out for the rest of the season with a torn ACL injury. He had been the only player in the NBA to have, I think, 25 points per game, 40% shooting from beyond the arc, and also 90% shooting from the stripe. They had been consistently throwing that around. Obviously, those numbers would take just a little bit with some of his recent games, but you can't deny that at his current age, he still is one of the most formidable players that the NBA has to offer on a night-to-night basis. And he's clearly a weapon. Now, the greatest asset that the Mavericks had healthy prior to him getting hurt. Now that he's out, they are going to be completely... I just can't imagine that they will make a push. Like, yes, they're still in the Western Conference. They're still in the play-in in the Western Conference right now. But I don't know if they can get enough wins in enough time as they are currently constructed to make a push. Like, that injury right there might have just pushed them out of elimination effectively. And not to mention also that in the same game, Hardy would also get an injury of his own, and he will likely miss time as well, as revealed the next day also. Now, again, he's definitely a rotational player, does not necessarily get a lot of minutes, but that's still a valuable depth piece to some extent gone. And then the icing on the fucking cake of all this shit, before they would even go into the full extent of these injuries, there would be a report that I saw on the ESPN ticker as I was watching that would state that the Mavericks ownership decided to raise ticket prices for next season by 8.6%. They had the gall, the nerve to raise ticket prices and try to rake in more money for the organization. To do what? You want to invest in the team so much and all of the facilities that the team owns to an extent. You gave away the greatest investment in franchise history. Like, literally, yes, I do get that a Supermax for Luka Doncic was going to be high. But like I said before, it's not like you don't have the fucking money to give him what he's worth. And with what he did for the damn team and the surrounding area in just 6 seasons of play, dog, even if he gets that money, the exposure that the organization would get with him still there is still going to pay dividends and is definitely going to line up the pockets. consistently, you're going to make that money back and then some with what he's going to contribute to your damn franchise. And everything that surrounds it, from marketing and advertising, any damn thing that has Luka Doncic and the Mavericks organization involved in it is going to make bank. Did they not realize that the second they decided to even think about moving on from this nigga in their heads? They were going to be more than fine with him there. From a financial standpoint, there's no way to argue that. This shit is dumb. Like, you're really trying to play with your fucking fan base. You're really trying it. It's you're banning niggas for saying fire Nico, and you're banning niggas from the stadium for confronting Mark Cuban about it. Granted, Mark Cuban is not the current owner, but we're trying our hardest to censor the fans and really make them try to believe that the Mavericks are going to be okay and that Luka Doncic was just another player in the fucking cycle that they could just cast aside like a fucking scrub. He's not a fucking scrub. He's not a waste of a fucking roster spot. It's Luka fucking Doncic. And you moved on from him for the most arbitrary things. Like, literally, so many people in Dallas and people outside of Dallas look up to Luka Doncic. He is an international superstar. We know Slovenian people definitely appreciate what he has done. Going all the way back to his contributions with Real Madrid in Europe. They appreciate what he's done. There are so many people, young children, that are looking up to this man right now just because he was playing basketball in Dallas. And you gave all of them niggas and Luka Doncic a big fuck you. And acted as if he wasn't worth shit. Like, that is so damn tone deaf. Like, yes, okay, some of the stuff he's doing with conditioning and everything might not be the most optimal. The nigga still got to the NBA Finals literally last year. Even with that shit. Like, you want to invest so badly, hiking up the prices and trying to make niggas conform to that reality, or else is not the strategy there at all. You think niggas are really gonna get behind that? That's ridiculous. What kind of precedent does that set for other places? What kind of precedent does that set, to be honest? Like, that shit is crazy. And then there were rumors flying around that the people that own the Mavericks are trying to move to Las Vegas because they are all part of a conglomerate, I suppose, that owns different casinos in that area. And they're trying to make the Mavericks a damn Las Vegas franchise. Like, yes, those are just rumors, but honestly, doing some shit like that is probably the first fucking step. And it's a ballsy move. They should ban the team. They should be boycotting the team. They shouldn't have the right to do that, because that's just nonsense. That's literally fucking censorship. Like, thing is too, there are going to be people that fall for it just willingly give them money to collect and then pump into some sort of exit plan to move and gather enough funding over enough time to actually make it happen. If that is what they're choosing to do. Like, that shit don't fly, man. Like, literally. Again, you know, like, this stuff that's going on with Irving, Hardy, Lively, Gafford, AD, all of that is unfortunate. But at the same time, in a sense, it's karmic. Because these niggas that own the franchise, like, not the players have nothing to do. They have literally no, they're very much abstained from blame here. This is all front office in ownership. They are getting exactly what they fucking deserve right now. Like, literally. You just, like, it's not about, yes, you're trying to get profit, but, like, damn, it's about more than the fucking money. Like, Luka Doncic does actually have a grand effect on a wide variety of people from a wide variety of different places around the fucking world. And again, you cast him out like he was nothing. Then you bring in a player like Anthony Davis, who is older with even worse injury history, and what happens after just 3/4 of fucking play. Now, there's not even necessarily a timetable on when the hell he's coming back. And then all these other core players of the team remaining are just dropping left and right. It's just not good. So, again, in many senses, not just in the overall record, I don't know how things get better for the Mavericks. Because they got stupid ass niggas running the show. They just a pool of stupid ass niggas. It's that simple. There's no other way I can say it. It's terrible. It is so fucking bad. I mean, my goodness, bro. Like, you gotta be kidding me. Goodness gracious, dude. Oh my gosh. Then moving on to the Nuggets, bro. Moving on to the fucking Nuggets, dog. They went 3-3 over this span. They started out with a win against the Hornets, 129-115. They then got their asses kicked against the Lakers, losing 123-100 on that Saturday. Again, I'll get into the implications the Lakers have in this when I get to them. But as far as the Nuggets go, Jokic got clamped up a little bit. Why do I say that? Yes, he still had a triple-double with 12 points, 10 rebounds, 10 assists and 13 rebounds. But he did have 6 turnovers in the ball game. And also, the Lakers had a rather interesting scheme in terms of guarding Jokic. As soon as he reached the middle of the court, or as soon as he started backing down people, there was always another person trying to generate pressure near the area. They were doing their best to double team him, and also with the way the zones were set up, they made it to where if they were out of position, there was another person ready to recover like that. In those moments, you only force Jokic to take up 7 shots on the night, with him averaging damn near 30. And then you're really trying to force other people at that point to score for the Nuggets, which did not happen consistently enough. I mean, Aaron Gordon had 24 points, but outside of that, I mean, Jamal Murray even had 6 threes, but they did not come in the timely moments, and they weren't effective enough to really put a dent into anything. It also didn't help that the Lakers were able to go on a pretty good run to open up the fourth quarter. And as far as general metrics go, they were even in terms of three-point percentage, but they just could not do work in terms of guarding the paint. And the Lakers also had a 33-9 advantage in fast break points. They won the game by 23. Nuggets as a whole also could not protect the ball. I mean, it starts with Jokic, but damn, 20 turnovers as a team and then 39 points off of those turnovers. Just not a good game for the Nuggets at all right there. They would get a bounce-back victory against the Pacers, 125-116, with Aaron Gordon leading the way with 25 points. It also helped that Michael Porter Jr. had 19 points and 11 rebounds. Jokic had 18 points and 19 assists, which ended up being a I think it was tied for the most for a center in NBA history, with none other than Wilt Chamberlain. Yeah. None other than Wilt Chamberlain tied that record, I believe. Way back. Just crazy, man. They would then lose to the Bucks. But watching this game live, they again comes down to the defensive struggle. That also starts with Jokic potentially holding down the fort, and that didn't happen. I mean, oh my gosh, like late in the ball game, like damn, Brook Lopez and his old ass got a leaning fucking poster dunk on him, and he just didn't contest it at all. With that being said, he still found a way to make an impact, despite the team in general not doing anything from the three-point line at all. Also, they couldn't draw fouls to save their lives. In a 9-point ball game, when you are allowing another team to make 14 more free throws than you while getting to the line 17 more times, oh yeah. They did their damage in the paint, but if you're not creating extra opportunities with the little things, you're not going to stand a chance here. In this game, Nikola Jokic had 32 points, 10 assists, and 14 rebounds, with one of his assists later on in the game creating a very historical moment. With his scoring, rebounding, and assisting ability, Jokic ended off February in a pretty remarkable way. His 300 points, 120 rebounds, and assists on 120 or more different plays in a month was the first instance of that specific stat line since 1968 with none other than Wilt Chamberlain. Yet again, I literally, this shit is getting scary for everybody that has their preconceived notions about both Jokic in Chamberlain. I said what I said in one of the earlier videos pertaining to those two. And it's literally coming to fruition. Literally. There's no way you can deny it. It's actually fucking crazy. Like, I mean, oh my gosh. Like, it's just ridiculous. Like, we have to accept that the narrative on those two players, it's a little more intertwined than people want to really believe. And that's gotta stop. It's gotta stop. They then got a 15-point win against the Pistons on February 28th to close out the month, before losing to the Celtics on Sunday, as I mentioned. Moving on to the Pistons, they are 5-1 since the All-Star break, in between this stretch of time, and they are currently the 6th seed in the Eastern Conference. They went on a 4-game winning streak from February 21st to February 26th, including a game against the Hawks where they won by 5, which I mentioned earlier, with scoring 148 points. And I didn't get to their own metrics. They shot very well from the field, 59% overall and 50% from deep. They dominated in the paint, and Cade Cunningham went absolutely ridiculous, getting 38 points, 12 assists, and 7 rebounds. Malik Beasley had 24 points off the bench on 7 of 12 shooting, as well as 6 3-pointers. Dennis Schroeder even stepped in the ball game and had 16 points of his own, and Asar Thompson had 14 points. Jalen Duren also had 13. Well, that same period of time, they would get a pretty huge win against the Celtics, as I mentioned, and then they beat the Clippers before that by 9. They did go out with a huge loss to the Nuggets, 134-119 to close out the month, but they picked it right back up to start out March, beating the Nets easily, as I mentioned earlier in the video. They scored 115-94. Didn't take much to knock that team off. Moving on to the Warriors. Over the stretch that I am covering in this particular video, the Warriors are 4-1 within this time span. They notched 4 straight wins, with starting out with a 132-108 victory against the Kings, in which Buddy Hield actually led the team in scoring with 22 points. Now, that's not to say that Stephen Curry didn't have an impact on this game. He had 20 points and 6 assists on 7 of 13 shooting. But you like to see some of the other players get involved here too. Moses Moody, in a starting role, had 22 points on 8 of 11 shooting, with identical numbers for his splits to Buddy Hield. And Brandon Podziemski also had 21 points as well. Jimmy Butler had 17. The very next game, as I mentioned, they would beat the Mavericks by 24, and then after the game, they took the timeout to retire Andre Iguodala's number 9. It wasn't broadcasted nationally, but I did catch it in post, and boy, it's like, I find it to be well deserved. You know, it's tricky because is he necessarily a superstar talent? No. And, you know, that was the gripe that many people had. You know, usually it's the best of the best players getting their jersey retired for any franchise. You don't necessarily see you see some role players get it, but there's always a little bit of fuss when that happens. The thing is though, like even with what you want to say about Andre Iguodala's talent, the fact of the matter is that he was in part because of his own sacrifice of, playing style and being told to come off the bench and accepting that over time. That mindset made him a part of quite possibly the most iconic dynasty of the century so far, and certainly the past decade. You feel like any person that had a huge role in that is going to eventually have their jersey number retired by the Warriors squad when it's all said and done. Given what Iguodala gave up in order to help the team get there, that's not going to go unnoticed as far as the franchise goes. So of course they're going to retire his number. Even if he wasn't necessarily putting up the numbers on the stat sheet or on the box score that are going to jump out at a person and make them commit to that belief, it was always about the little things. In the behind the scenes stuff. Things that you couldn't calculate on any sort of using any sort of analytics or like different ideals, different concepts that you couldn't necessarily track down with a piece of paper. That's where Iguodala's impact came in. So again, well deserved, no complaints there. As far as the game goes itself, Curry had 30 points and 7 assists in this one on 12 of 20 shooting. Jimmy Butler also added 18 points, and Brandon Podziemski had 17. Against the Hornets, the Warriors had probably one of the easiest wins. I mean, no starting player had over 15 points. Granted, they didn't need to. In Curry's return to North Carolina, he had 15 points in just 24 minutes of play. He also added 6 assists. Buddy Hield led the way off the bench with 16. Aside from that, you had 7 overall players in double digits. And everybody was getting buckets. You had Post getting some points. You had Jackson Rowe getting some points. And you had Pat Spencer get a few buckets in there as well. Just a very great team win. They combined to shoot 49% from the field and also 35.7% from beyond the arc. They definitely had the advantage in paint points and definitely controlled the defensive aspect of the game to a T. 37 points off of turnovers to just 19. And they forced 24 as well. Then the last 2 ball games would be very interesting ones for Steph. In this game against the Magic on Thursday, February 27th, he went stupid against the Magic. Despite them trying to make it as close as possible, it stood no chance because of the fact that this man, Stephen Curry, went absolutely nuclear on this night. In 34 minutes of play, he went off for 56 points, making 16 overall shots out of 25, hitting 12 of 19 three-pointers, and also making all 12 of his free throw attempts, making him tied for the most 50-point games. Yeah, tied for the most 50-point games for players older than 30, I believe. Just, just exceptional stuff. And obviously, there's something about this particular day for him. Like this isn't the first time, man. This isn't even the start of it. We all know of his more iconic moments there on this particular day, man. It's just something about it. That's all I can say. Great way to end the month of February, and they were inching themselves closer and closer to getting out of play-in contention and being one of the top 6 seeds in the Western Conference. But before they could reach that mark, they would be hindered by one of the most random performances of all time. Now, I'll outline this for the 76ers when I get around to them, but the shit that happened in this game right here, you're not gonna see again. I mean, the 76ers ultimately distanced themselves with the fact that they shot so well. To allow any team to shoot 53% damn near from the field and also 57.6% from beyond the arc, you're not necessarily giving yourself a lot of room to work with there. And then, at the worst possible moments, inefficiency and just complete gaffes flared up in the worst way. That being said, players like Stephen Curry, Quentin Post, like they played their asses off and tried to make a rally back. Like, it looked bad to start out the third quarter, but things came to a head in the fourth. You had Guy Santos at multiple points in the fourth quarter, including near the end of the ball game, getting tough shot after tough shot, even hitting and one to tie it up. Yeah, Quentin Post sparking up three-pointers all over the place. Gary Payton II was a great partner with Stephen Curry's, just receiving dish after dish and getting some pretty nice buckets down the stretch. But Stephen Curry was certainly the man out of the hour, as not only did he drop 29 points, 13 assists, and 5 rebounds with just 3 turnovers on 10 of 18 shooting and 5 threes, but he also managed to throw down his first dunk as he was getting the transition pass from Buddy Hield all the way down the court. Earlier on in the fourth quarter, he was wide open, and he even stated in a post-game interview that Jerry Stackhouse had been trying to get him to dunk all year. So after he dunks, he points over to the sideline, and that is who that was directed to. But that was his very first dunk since February 21st of 2019, and I do remember that dunk very much. It was a game against the Kings. He got a pass as he was cutting from Kevin Durant, and he just threw down a pretty mean two-handed dunk. Even he, in the same post-game interview, said that kind of moment, it was certainly great to see. Definitely got me hyped. But even he had to shut down any potential for more to come. So that is probably going to be it. But man, like, greatest shooter of all time. But hey, I guess you can't sleep on the verticals. Even with a loss like that, it would seem at this point, at the end of this particular stretch, and I'm talking about that the Warriors are really finding their footing. But it would be noted that Jimmy Butler III was out for this game against the 76ers with back spasms. So you would have to hope that they would get him healthy again. And to see that, I'll probably be, again, that'll definitely be outlined when I handle the next segment, or next video recording of these particular events. In the meantime, we move on to the Rockets. And during this stretch, they have kind of lost their footing a little bit. They've been 3-2 since the All-Star break. They did get a pretty good win against the Timberwolves to start things out. I ended up watching this ball game. It was very competitive. Like, I was watching everything just break down. I mean, yes, the Rockets had a 48-point first quarter, but after that, shit was getting hectic out there, chaotic. It almost felt like a playoff game. And I really do think, after seeing this go down, that a Rockets-Timberwolves playoff matchup would be very, very, very exciting. Despite the best efforts of Anthony Edwards and the fact that there were a lot of extra possessions that went the Timberwolves' way, because of the fact that the Rockets turned the ball over 20 times and gave up 26 points off of turnovers, the Rockets still managed to come through in the clutch and get the victory. You had Jalen Green get 35 points and 5 rebounds on total of 24 shooting. Auburn Shangen had 24 points and 13 rebounds. And Amen Thompson had 17 points and 10 boards on 7 of 9 shooting. But the key thing that I was watching for in this ball game was the return of Jabari Smith Jr. Were they actually going to stick with starting Amen Thompson, or were they going to relegate him to the bench in favor of Jabari Smith Jr.? As far as this particular game went, the answer was that they made Jabari Smith Jr. a 6-man. And with him putting up 15 points and 9 rebounds with 4 made 3-pointers, safe to say that for what they needed in this particular ball game, it was wise. Obviously, you would want to see what would happen in the long term. Then immediately after that, they would lose to the Jazz 124 to 115. They just got completely outpaced against the Jazz for whatever reason. Even though the Jazz are trying their absolute hardest to sell everything at the line, shooting below 50% from the stripe. But they got killed in the paint in every sense of the imagination, and they crashed the glass, contributing to some of their made field goals, giving them a 50% efficiency from the field. In this game, they would actually start both Jabari Smith Jr. and Amen Thompson. They had no choice because Tari Eason was out with injury. Auburn Shangen had 27 points, 12 rebounds, and 7 assists on 11 of 24 shooting. Jalen Green had 25 points, and Amen Thompson had 22 points on 9 of 15 shooting, along with 2 threes. Even Jeff Green's old ass off the bench had 16 points on 6 of 8 shooting. But it still was not enough. They would get into a pretty close matchup with the Bucks, but they did pull out the 100-97 victory against them. You, once more, have another case of them controlling the pace in the paint and notching 53 total rebounds, along with an advantage of 12 on offensive boards. In a game that close, every single one of them certainly counted. So that displayed itself there. Jabari Smith Jr. will be relegated to the bench again in place of Tari Eason. He would get 13 points off the bench, while Tari Eason would get 12 as a starter. Auburn Shengen had 23 points and 11 rebounds on 8 of 16 shooting. And Jalen Green also had 25 points on 9 of 20 shooting, along with 8 rebounds and 3 assists. They would then beat the Spurs 118-106. I watched this game live, and the box score is definitely not fully representative of just how bad things were. I mean, they quite literally got the lead up to as large as 26 in this ball game. The Rockets did. And then, prior to the end of the third quarter, they actually reached a 28-point lead. Like, the Spurs just settled for a lot of garbage time points. There was really no point in this ball game where they had control. But if you're going to give up a 34-point first quarter, you're definitely not going to get anywhere with that. And especially if you don't offer resistance. I mean, the Rockets defense, especially early on, definitely helped things a lot. I will get into how the Spurs starters performed, because that was definitely the driving force of this blowout. As far as the Rockets go, Tari Eason would once more be out with, I suppose, injury, so Jabari Smith Jr. would get the starting nod again. 9 points, 10 rebounds, and an assist for him. 4 of 15 shooting is absolutely atrocious, but obviously other people were there to contribute, like Amen Thompson, who had 25 points on 12 of 15 shooting. Jalen Green had 21 points, 7 rebounds, and 4 assists on 9 of 17 shooting. And Dylan Brooks, for whatever reason, had 19 points and 5 threes. Auburn Shengen definitely struggled offensively, just 1 of 5 from the field. But 11 rebounds and only 3 assists. Definitely a struggling game for him. But they were able to fully execute on the offensive side and hone in on defense, giving them the edge there. Then, to open up March and close things out here, they lost to the Kings by 10. They scored 113-103. There's a chance that they could be okay, but you never really know. Moving on to the Pacers. During this stretch, after the All-Star break, they have been 4-2. So that's definitely a great turnaround for them. And that has been aided by a complete and total turnaround in every sense of the imagination for Tyrese Haliburton. Win or loss, this man has been fucking cooking over these past 6 ball games. Like, he has somewhere around just an absurd amount of overall assists over the last few ball games. Hyper efficiency from 3 and from the field in general, and a very low number of turnovers. So the Pacers are certainly on the way back. They got 2 back-to-back wins against the Grizzlies and Clippers to open things up. They did drop against the Nuggets by 9. They got a pretty easy win to pick it right back up against the Raptors on February 26th with a final score of 111-91, with Tyrese Haliburton putting up 33 points, 3 rebounds, 11 assists, 3 steals, and 2 blocks with just a single turnover on 12 of 15 shooting and 7 of 9 shooting from beyond the arc. That's just a glimpse of what he's done. Like I said, you're not, like, man, anytime you can have a person go off for 80% shooting and 77% shooting from 3, while keeping turnovers to an absolute minimum, that's scary. Now, they would drop this match against the Heat with a score of 125-120. It was Pascal Siakam that led the way in this one, although Tyrese Haliburton still had a double-double with 19 points and 10 assists. And also hope that Andrew Nembhard kept him in the game with 9 points and 11 assists of his own. But Pascal Siakam, in a losing effort, put up 36 points on 13 of 21 shooting and 8 of 11 shooting from beyond the arc. Also contributing 6 boards. And once more, again, the thing about defense, like, the Pacers shot pretty great, but they couldn't stop the Heat to save their lives. They were also baited into more fouls, generally speaking, and the Heat were able to convert more efficiently from the line than the Pacers did. Even then, just 5 of 8 shooting as a team, and drawing fouls against a team like the Heat, known for at least trying to impose physicality in some sense under Erik Spoelstra, that's always going to be part of the game plan. And if you can't even get to the line over 10 times, like, damn, you're not... It doesn't always work out in the most positive of ways. They would open up March with a 127-112 victory against the Bulls on Sunday. In it, Aaron Nesmith actually put up a career high in points with 27 on 9 of 16 shooting and 6 threes. Pascal Siakam had 20. Tyrese Haliburton had another double-double with 17 points, 12 assists, 5 rebounds, 3 steals, and yet again, just 1 turnover. TJ McConnell also had 11 points off the bench, and Miles Turner had 16 points and 6 boards. They currently sit as a 5th seed in the Western Conference, and if they can keep this up, they may very well be solidified in the sense of making the playoffs. We'll just have to see how they close things out. Moving on to the Clippers, they have been 1-5 since the All-Star break. And though I'm just covering this stretch of particular games, it seems to have gotten just a little worse. But I'm not going to venture that far down the line. What I am going to say for now is that, oh, man, a lot of them have just been tough. A lot of them. You want to be in competitive ball games more often than not, but you also want to be able, instead of just being battle tested, you want to win those battles more so than you lose them. And they lost to the Bucks by 6 in Milwaukee. They got blown out by the Pacers, as I mentioned, by 18 on February 23rd. They lost to the Pistons, as I mentioned, by 9. They did get the win against the Bulls, with Harden taking it back and putting up a 30 ball with 6 assists, also 6 turnovers. That's definitely natural for him. 9 of 20 shooting and 7 threes. Amir Coffey even added 20 points off the bench to help them. Kawhi Leonard had 17. Derrick Jones Jr. had 16 on 6 of 9 shooting. Bogdan Bogdanovic off the bench had 14 points on 5 of 7 shooting. And Ivica Zubac had a 10 rebound double-double with 2 blocks. They definitely were not going to be in a position to lose to the Bulls, even though they definitely slacked in terms of transition defense. But the fact that they were able to convert way more off of turnovers eventually led them to victory. And also, with James Harden leading the charge, of course, they were able to draw more fouls. When is that not the case with this team under James Harden? Like, of course that's going to happen. It also helped that they made over 50% of their field goals and also shot 51.4% from beyond the arc. But their last two ball games would see them get literally, get so close. I kid you not. I watched as they got so close on both occasions to beating the Lakers. Tuning into the first one, and in this particular one, they down the stretch especially, they allowed Luka Doncic to go on an 8-point personal run, and then also when push came to shove, and they managed to try and account for Luka Doncic, LeBron James was able to get free rolls to the basket and put up easy shot after easy shot. That alone killed them. It's as simple as that. I mean, this is with Chris Dunn putting up 14 points on 6 of 9 shooting. This is with Kawhi Leonard putting up 21 points on 8 of 17 shooting. And this is with Ivica Zubac having a ball game. 27 points and 16 rebounds in what has already been a career best season for him. On 13 of 15 shooting nonetheless. Now that lack of defense down the stretch certainly hurt them. But it also is worth mentioning that they shot just 24.3% from beyond the arc. And James Harden was the main proprietor of that. 18 points, yes, but 5 of 22 shooting from the field and 1 of 10 from 3. Yeah, no wonder they lost by 4. So the score of this game was 106-102. They would literally lose 108-102 in the very next ball game against the Lakers yet again. That is such a coincidental thing. You cannot make that up. You can't. Once more, this is despite Kawhi Leonard doing his absolute best to carry the squad. 33 points on 13 of 23 shooting and 3 of 7 shooting from the field for him. But you, once more, down the stretch, seem to not be able to account for one or the other in Luka Doncic and LeBron, which makes sense, but you're also having horrible stretches from people who should be your main shooters on the squad. For James Harden to go 4 of 14 shooting on the night, also 2 of 9 from 3 for 13 points, and then Bogdan Bogdanovic off the bench as a 6-man to get just 12 points on 4 of 16 shooting and just 4 of 11 shooting from 3. Those missed shots hold so much weight in a game that is that close. There's no avoiding that fact. You cannot be chucking up all those low percentage shots in that tight of a ball game. It never fares well for you. And again, not going to spoil it for them, but again, things may be getting a little worse before they get even remotely better. As far as the Lakers go, they have won over the course of this stretch 6 straight, going completely... They haven't lost. Completely undefeated since the All-Star break. That is quite the spot to be in, if I do say so myself. Now, they won 110-102 against the Blazers on the 20th, with LeBron putting up 40 points. They would lose Austin Reeves in this ball game, I believe. Or actually, no. It would happen in the Nuggets game, yes. Austin Reeves in this particular game, though, also added 32 points and 7 assists of his own, along with 2 blocks and 2 steals on 9 of 21 shooting, and also a total of 12 of 13 from the line. Rui Hachimura also had 12 boards, and Dorian Finney-Smith had 10 rebounds. They would get Luka Doncic back for this game against the Nuggets that they dropped 123 points in, and also won by 23, as I mentioned. Like I said, they were even in three-point percentage, but the Lakers had the advantage pretty much everywhere else. They protected the ball, just 8 turnovers on the night. They won in transition. They were an opportunistic defense with the scheme that they drew up. And honestly, they might have figured something out there, because honestly, with the roster that they currently have, even with their big men, like, yes, Jackson Hayes has been a pretty good lob threat for both Doncic and LeBron since getting there. But he's not an adept defender at all, despite his frame. So, working around that, they had to scheme up the proper defense to counter Nikola Jokic. And honestly, as the Lakers continue to progress throughout the season, that's what it's going to take against the star players. You don't necessarily have the talent. You're not always going to have the personnel to match up against this talent. It really comes down to how you align different players in different spots on the court to either attack and be an aggressive defender, or stay back and be a keen observer of what is happening elsewhere. Help if needed. Just be aware of potential cutters or people crashing the glass for boards, things like that. It's all about properly setting up your players on that end. As much as you would try to do the same thing for them on offense, it's going to take that kind of intensity for the Lakers defensively to last on that side of the ball as they get closer to a potential postseason bid. Yes, with their win streak as well, they are now second in the Western Conference, by the way. But I'm getting too far ahead of myself. As far as this game goes, the Nuggets, yeah, they just got completely blitzed. This particular game saw the first instance this season where the Lakers had 4 20-point scorers in a ball game, that being Rui Hachimura with 21 points on 7-12 shooting, LeBron with 25 points, 9 rebounds, and 5 assists on 11-19 shooting, Austin Reeves with 23 points and 7 assists on 7-13 shooting, and also Luka Doncic leading the way with his first 30-point ball game as a Laker. Well, not... yeah, he got 32 points, 10 rebounds in this one, with 7 assists as well on 10 of 22 shooting. Nuggets couldn't do anything about it either. Some of the wildest shots he just threw up and the shit went in. That's how crazy it got in this ball game for him. And they would certainly need to ride that momentum. But first, they would take on Dallas. And as I mentioned, they won the ball game. Both Rob Pelinka and obviously Rob Pelinka, Nico Harrison was there for whatever reason, watching. Like yes, he was also in attendance for the fucking Andre Iguodala jersey retirement ceremony, by the way, which I found to be very interesting. But yeah, he was gonna see in real time how exactly Luka Doncic was going to fare in this ball game. And let's just say that while it wasn't an optimal shooting night for him, the defense was also intact for the Lakers as well. And he hit some timely shots when he needed to, while also, with his high IQ, making the right plays at the right time. And that certainly helped them get this 8-point victory. He, in this one, despite shooting 6 of 17 from the field and just 1 of 7 from 3, he became the 4th ever Laker to record a triple-double within their first 5 games. Those including the likes of Russell Westbrook, LeBron, obviously, and I believe Wilt Chamberlain. He, in this one, had 19 points, 12 assists, and 15 rebounds. Also putting up one of the first 12, 12, and 12 stat lines for that team in a while as well. Just add even more insult to injury. LeBron would also add 27 points and 12 rebounds of his own. Like I said, down the stretch, just getting some very good pocket passes thrown to him in the paint for easy buckets, some and ones. He shot 11 of 17 from the field. Austin Reeves also had 20 points and 5 rebounds on 5 of 12 shooting. Next was their matchup against the Timberwolves, where they would win 111 to 102 with LeBron putting up 33, 17, and 6 on the night, while also shooting 11 of 21 from the field. Austin Reeves had 23 points and 5 assists and 6 rebounds, along with 2 steals on 5 of 10 shooting. Luka Doncic once more with another rough night shooting, 6 of 20 from the field and 1 of 9 shooting from beyond the arc, but he did contribute 21 points, 13 rebounds, and 5 assists on the night as well. They were able to... I mean, yeah, that's like, oh my gosh. Despite being worse in efficiency from the free throw line, the mere fact that they were able to get 46 attempts on the night and make 32 of them played a huge role. But again, with both Doncic, James, and even Reeves now being adept at drawing and baiting people into fouls, that served as a huge advantage for them. They also won the rebounding battle heavily. As I mentioned just a few minutes back, they must really own the Clippers. They really are big brother to them. Like, there's just no denying it. I mean, oh my gosh. Just back-to-back wins that saw Luka Doncic put up 31 points, 5 assists, and also 3 steals on 9 of 22 shooting on his birthday. He entered the ball game with the 6th most points all time for any player in NBA history prior to turning 26, and that would just extend with his performance in this particular match up. Then in the next game against the Clippers, he would have his way yet again with scoring 29 points and getting 9 assists, 2 steals, and 6 boards. LeBron had 17 points and 9 assists. And Dalton Knecht off the bench had 19 points on 7 of 10 shooting. It also helped that Luka Doncic shot 9 of 17 from the field. One of the more efficient nights of his short but blossoming Lakers tenure so far. And the fact that he was struggling and they were still pulling out victories is a testament to a lot of different parts of that team right now. It could only go up from here. And that, again, if that happens to be the case, man, that is a scary sight to see. Moving on to the Grizzlies, who, over the course of their last few games after the All-Star break, they have gone 2-4 over this time. It's a different blend of things going on here. Different blend of things. They got boat raced against the Pacers, as I mentioned. They did beat the Magic by a single point. As Ja Morant would lead the way with 23 points and 5 assists on the night. On 10 of 24 shooting from the field. This would then progress into losing territory, as they would lose to the Cavs, as I mentioned earlier, by 6, despite Jaren Jackson Jr.'s best efforts. This game against the Suns is likely also, that Cavs Grizzlies game was nationally televised. I did watch it. Definitely down to the wire. They tried to make things interesting, as I stated, but yeah, no. Suns Grizzlies was definitely something very, very unorthodox. From what I had been seeing is, I was tracking this ball game. Ja Morant was struggling the entirety of the game. Yet he did hit the game-tying floater that sent it into overtime. And the Grizzlies threw it all in the epitome of a back and forth. Won it with a score of 151-148. Ja Morant, despite shooting 7 of 25 from the field, did again hit the game-tying shot, had 29 points, 8 assists, and 4 rebounds. Jaren Jackson Jr. had 28 on 11 of 13 shooting, which is actually pretty decent. You had Desmond Bane score 25 points, 9 assists, and log 9 assists as well, on 8 of 15 shooting, and Jalen Wells also contributed 19 points. Then you had Santi Aldama get 17 points off the bench with 5 threes, and also Brandon Clark had 14 points as well. Just a complete lack of defense all around. It's absolutely unsightly. I mean, even with the Grizzlies having an advantage in points off turnovers, it didn't even feel like it, because those stops came very few and far between. But ultimately, they made a few key ones to give them the victory here. Now, if they were able to triumph in a moment of potential heartbreak, let's just say that the past 2 ball games over this stretch have not seen that happen. At home against the Knicks, in a game that was not nationally broadcasted, they lost by 1 point. Even with Desmond Bane putting up 24 points and 12 rebounds on 9 of 17 shooting, even with Ja getting 25, and even with Jaren Jackson Jr. putting up 18, ultimately, in the final seconds of the ball game, okay, you get a game-winning three-point shot from OG Anunoby. At home, mind you. Then this last match of this particular stretch against the Spurs, despite Jaren Jackson Jr. dropping 42 points on the Spurs' head on 15 of 25 shooting, Jalen Wells had 18. Zach Edey shot perfect from the field and had 17. Santi Aldama had 15. Luke Kennard had 14 points. And even 5 assists off the bench. Like, everything seemed to be going right for the Grizzlies. Almost everything, that is. You see, they would have yet another game at home come down to the wire, where in the final few seconds of this ball game, despite Jaren Jackson Jr. making what could have potentially been a game-tying shot that could send them to overtime in a perfect world, De'Aaron Fox would prove why he did get a Clutch Player of the Year award and get the two-point jumper to give them the 2-point victory. And the tough way to go out. And again, as I will cover next time, yeah, it would happen again, weirdly enough. Moving on to the Heat, they have been an even 3-3 since the All-Star break and currently sit as the 7th seed in the Eastern Conference. They won against the Raptors by 9 to start things out. Then they lost to the Bucks as they do this despite Tyler Hero dropping 40 points, 11 assists, and 7 rebounds on a pretty solid shooting split, at least from the stripe. Bam Adebayo also had 24 points and 7 rebounds, and Andrew Wiggins had 20. But that just wasn't enough to knock off the duo of Dame and Giannis. And again, they have yet another game where they are shooting just 29% from the three-point line. Do you really think in this climate in the NBA you're going to be able to keep up if you're not spacing the floor that well? Answer to that question is no. They then dropped their next match against the Hawks 98-86. Despite Andrew Wiggins putting up 23 points, and despite Kelly Ware, who has continued to be on a pretty good rise as a rookie center for them, grabbed 15 boards in this ball game. Kyle Anderson also had 14 points off the bench of his own. But the problem in this one was that players certainly were not hitting shots. At any point in any NBA game, when any player on your team is leading in assists with just 3, and you combine that with all of the other offensive struggles they have, that is not a good recipe for success. They would win the back-to-back against them, though, in a sort of series, I guess, by 22, with a much better game facilitating, and Tyler Hero leading all scorers for the Heat, 24. They then also had Duncan Robinson put up 24 points as well. Davion Mitchell surprisingly put up 20 points on 7 of 8 shooting and 5 of 5 shooting from beyond the arc. They parlayed that into another win against Indiana, as I mentioned earlier in the video, with Tyler Hero putting up 29 points and 7 assists on 11 of 25 shooting. Duncan Robinson had 20 off the bench yet again. Bam Adebayo had 18 points and 7 assists, 7 rebounds as well, on 8 of 14 shooting, and also a 50% clip from beyond the arc. Jaime Jaquez Jr. also made all of his shots in the ballgame. That certainly, with him getting 11 points, you could argue that was pretty much the difference for them there. And they went completely toe-to-toe with the Pacers. They made a higher percentage of field goals. They had nearly around the same three-point percentage as well. So you will definitely take that result. Heading into March, though, they would suffer a tough loss to the Knicks with a score of 116 to 112, despite Bam Adebayo putting up 30 points, 7 rebounds, and 4 assists on 12 of 16 shooting. Tyler Hero absolutely struggled. 24 shots, 33% shooting for 22 points. Yikes. Just a complete and total yikes. So, again, given how weak the Eastern Conference is, the Heat could be okay in their current state, but naturally, they're going to have to try to get some momentum going. It's definitely going to be harder, but, you got to make it happen. Moving on to the Bucks, and over the course of this stretch, they won 3 straight to open up their games after the All-Star break, beating the Clippers, as I mentioned. They also beat the Wizards by 3 with Kyle Kuzma leading in scoring. Obviously, Giannis wasn't playing in this ball game. And then they also knocked off the Heat, as I previously mentioned, with Damian Lillard getting 28 points of his own, and also Giannis contributing 23 points, 16 rebounds, and 7 assists on 11 of 18 shooting, also hitting a three-pointer for shits and gigs. They would suffer a tough loss to the Rockets by 3, as I mentioned earlier in the video, and they did get a strong victory against Denver, as I previously mentioned, as Giannis in this one would get 28 points, 19 rebounds, and 7 assists on 11 of 23 shooting. Damian Lillard also added 19 points on just 9 shots. Gary Trent Jr. had 15 points on 8 shots. And Taurean Prince had 10 points and 2 3-pointers. Also, Brook Lopez did Brook Lopez things. So, 4-1 to end off February. Then in March, to start things out, they would wipe the floor with the Mavericks on March 1st, getting a 132 to 117 victory against them. Giannis would go off for 28 points, 29 points, 9 rebounds, and 9 assists on 9 of 14 shooting. Damian Lillard had 28 points on 8 of 17 shooting, and Gary Trent Jr. had 20 points and 4 3-pointers. They completely, like I said, when I talked about the Mavericks side of things, they were obviously outmatched, but still, just a very rough way for any team to go out. And it's safe to say that whenever I get into talking about their next stretch of ball games, the Bucks may be bound to do the Mavericks even worse. But that's neither here nor there. We move on to the Timberwolves, and over this stretch of time since the All-Star break, they went 2-4. As I mentioned, they lost to the Rockets by 8 in a very tough battle, albeit, things do not always go as planned and games are totally unpredictable. As close as that was, there was always the potential that maybe in the next time they face off against a tough team, they may find themselves on the favorable end of that result. They wouldn't have to wait another game for that, though, because they would lose to the Thunder at home by 7 with a score of 130 to 123. Now, I watched this game live, and it was truly a back and forth one. I mean, the Thunder earlier on in the ball game had a 22-6 run. And then as guys like Terrence Shannon Jr. and Anthony Edwards started to heat up, all of a sudden you then get the Timberwolves going on a 30-9 run and making it a close ball game at the end of the first half. Then that streak just seemingly continues to start out the third quarter at least, until Alex Caruso just started being the Timberwolves' kryptonite and hitting shot after motherfucking shot, helping them go on an 18-4 run, and the Thunder were eventually able to close it out in the fourth quarter. As far as the Timberwolves side of things go, I mean, they had reasonable contributions everywhere. You had Anthony Edwards get 29 points and 10 boards with 7 dimes on the night. You had Naz Reid get 22 points and 11 rebounds. Albeit 6 of 18 shooting isn't necessarily great, but timely buckets were definitely converted by him. Just got to be more efficient in a game like that, for sure. Nickeil Alexander-Walker even had 18 points off the bench. And also, though he got injured, this man, Jalen Clark, started out the ball game hitting his first 6 shots, ending it with 14 points in just 18 minutes. Because, unfortunately, as he was trying to convert a fast break opportunity, he got a concussion and he was taken out of the ball game. So his efforts were definitely missed there, but they would definitely be realized by the Timberwolves very shortly. As for the next matchup against the Thunder, though, there was no Anthony Edwards in this one, but, well, there was Anthony Edwards in this one, but, a little bit of controversy around it. You see, at some point in the fourth quarter, they actually decided to take Anthony Edwards out of the ball game. I'm not sure for what reason, per se, because it wasn't a nationally televised game. Like, I was thinking maybe he got hurt, maybe he was struggling for a little bit. But either way, the Timberwolves actually managed to get this game, despite being a little weaker in terms of talent. They brought this game to overtime, aided by a fourth quarter which saw them go on a 41-19 run. And especially when we look at the last few minutes of that particular fourth quarter, the Thunder did not score anything at all. Literally. Last 3 minutes and 55 seconds after Jalen Williams got this particular layup here, they literally rallied all the way back, going on a pretty much 16-0 run, and tying up the ball game with a Jaden McDaniels free throw and one to send it to overtime, where they would win by 3 with a score of 131-28. Jaden McDaniels actually ended up leading the way with 27 points on 9 of 16 shooting. I'm shocked he didn't even attempt a single 3. But he did also have 10 rebounds, 4 assists, and 2 steals. Anthony Edwards had 17 points, 13 rebounds, and 8 assists. Nickeil Alexander-Walker had 21 points off the bench on 10 of 12 shooting. Terrence Shannon Jr. also had 17 points and 10 rebounds off the bench, while Robert Dillingham had 12 points and 5 assists with just a single turnover off the bench. They would then get their ass kicked against the Lakers. But I mean, granted, the Lakers are on a heater of their own. So even a team as formidable as the Timberwolves could be ain't necessarily stopping them. But one silver lining of this ball game is that Terrence Shannon Jr. put up a 25.5 rebound and 2 assist performance on 9 of 15 shooting. They did also keep 3-point shots and 3-point efficiency to a low for the Lakers, as they forced them to shoot just 26.8% from beyond the arc. Too bad they weren't much better on the offensive end. So that naturally cost them. Then again, 26 free throws attempted to 46. Like, again, where's the resistance at? Where is the interior defense? Where's the discipline? You know? They also lost a game to the Jazz to go on a 2-game losing streak for some odd reason. But they would pick it back up with a win against the Suns on March the 2nd in a game that I did watch live. And we'll get to the Suns, but yeah. It literally, as I stated, as I was looking at the game and taking down some things, the game literally went exactly how a couple of the games in their first round matchup in the 23-24 season went. You know, both teams were definitely going back and forth for a little while, but ultimately the Timberwolves, especially in that third quarter, they just completely went nuclear. I mean, you had Anthony Edwards get 17 third quarter points, and then you had Dante DiVincenzo hit 3-pointer after 3-pointer during that stretch on a 12-5 run that just increased their lead to an even higher rate. And despite the Suns' best efforts, their terrible defense could not save them for enough time consistently to truly affect the Timberwolves' ability to win this one, as they would get it with a score of 116-98. In it, Anthony Edwards had 44 points, 7 assists, and 2 steals with just a single turnover on 12 of 22 shooting. 14 free throws and 6 made threes. Dante DiVincenzo had 8 threes and 24 points off the bench in 27 minutes, along with 5 steals. Julius Randle also didn't fuck shit up. Had a sequence of some really good plays, too, that I would give him credit for. He had 20 points on 8 of 14 shooting. But yeah, speaking of steals. 20 turnovers for the Suns. 18 of them were steals. 18. And the Timberwolves were able to get 40 points off of those turnovers compared to just 9 points off turnovers for the Suns. And that's what truly made up the difference right there. They were about dead even in fouls. They obviously were able to stretch the floor pretty well. They were more efficient from the line. But that is the most glaring difference. They capitalized on every single extra opportunity they were given. Pretty much. Like, literally. It doesn't get much better than that. 20 turnovers. And you're getting at least 2 points off of every single one. According to that, when you look at it on paper. You can't make that up. So that's all the more reason why they ended up winning that one. A strong way to end off that stretch. Moving on to the Pelicans. And obviously none of their games are nationally televised. But they have managed over this time to go 4-2 since the All-Star break. They lost their first match against the Dallas Mavericks by 8, as I mentioned. But they did go on a 3-game winning streak, which saw them beat the Spurs in back-to-back games by 18 in the first one, with Zion Williamson leading the way, and then by 6 in the second one, with Trey Murphy III handling the offensive weight in that one, as he would put up 24 points, 4 rebounds, 4 assists, 2 steals, and 2 blocks on 9 of 21 shooting. Zion Williamson also had 18 points, and Yves Missi had a 10-point, 11-rebound double-double. For what it's worth, Kelly Olynyk also grabbed 12 boards just for the fuck of it, I guess. They also got a pretty solid win against the Suns in Phoenix with a score of 124-116. Obviously, anytime he plays the Suns, it seems like Zion Williamson is just going to unload some new dunk on the squad. And that's pretty much exactly what happened for him en route to a 27-point, 10-rebound, and 11-assist ball game on 13 of 17 shooting. Elite ball game for him, and I think it's his very first, if not one of his first, triple-doubles in his NBA career. Yves Missi also had an 11-point, 10-rebound double-double, just to flip-flop. Karlo Matkovic got a start, and he contributed 17 points and 10 rebounds on 7 of 13 shooting, hitting 3 threes. Jose Alvarado had 14 points off the bench. Jordan Hawkins had 10 points off the bench on relatively good efficiency. And you also had CJ McCollum put up 19, with Trey Murphy III putting up 18 in this one. As far as splits for this game go, they just got a great amount of opportunities, extra opportunities. 104 compared to 94 shots on the night. No matter how efficient you are, and granted they won that battle too, to have those opportunities, yeah, that pays dividends. They also won in pretty much every metric. They kept a clean ball game, and they also were able to narrowly beat them in transition and just dominate them in the paint. Because granted, Now, with that being said, they would also beat the Jazz. Granted, it's the Jazz. But they did win by 7, putting up 128 points as a team, shooting over 50% from the field, getting about even in terms of 3-point makes and efficiency, but also as a team putting up 76 points in the paint compared to the Jazz's 56. CJ McCollum had 25 points on 10 of 18 shooting. Kelly Olynyk actually led the scorers for this squad with 26 points, 9 rebounds, and 4 assists on 10 of 14 shooting with 3 threes. Zion Williamson had 24 points, 9 assists, and 6 boards on 11 of 18 shooting. Trey Murphy III also contributed 20 points despite shooting 8 of 20 from the field. Still, even with this, way too little, way too late for them. They should have already been starting to do this stuff, man. They waited too long. Like, it's literally a wrap now. There's no need for any of that. Not gonna lie to you. Alright, moving on to the Knicks, and in this time span, they have also gone 4-2. They won against the Bulls by 2, as I mentioned, and then they lost big time in back-to-back ball games against the top 2 teams in the Eastern Conference. This is the issue with this squad. Like, despite them sitting at 3rd in the Eastern Conference, it almost feels like any time that they play against the top 2 teams in the Eastern Conference and also OKC, they do not know how to play basketball. Because both of these games were nationally televised, and I did already cover deeper, in-depth content of both of these ball games as I reviewed both the Cavs and the Celtics stretch so far. But it's very telling on the Knicks side of things to be completely blown out in both ball games. You should be playing with a lot more effort, intensity, and overall drive in ball games against the best of the best, and they crumble. Literally, to be held to exactly 105 points in back-to-back ball games. That is absurd. Like, what a turnaround for a team that earlier on in the season had a stretches like the most, or getting the most points in franchise history over a set game span. Yeah, drastic shift from that. Now they would, after that, go on a 3-game winning streak, albeit against a little weaker competition, if you want to call it that. I'm not calling the Grizzlies a weak team, but I'm saying that they currently sit as the 4th best team in their conference. They're not one of the top 3 teams in the NBA, which again, the Knicks with that are now currently 0-8 against, oh man. Like, all these wins are relatively easier. I mean, the 76ers 5-point win with Jalen Brunson going crazy, 34 points and 7 assists for him. But Josh Hart also grabbing 17 boards. Mikal Bridges also had 28 points on 12-18 shooting. So that certainly helps their cause. Obviously, I mentioned the game against the Grizzlies. It's a great win, and you had a very clutch sequence from OG Anunoby. That's well respected. I get that. And then their last win would be against the Heat by 4, with Jalen Brunson putting up 31 points. So, I mean, it's like they have the ability to impose their will on teams. And they do a great job of doing that to literally everyone else. Aside from the peak of competition in the league right now. It's very revealing stuff. And you want, especially if you are a Knicks enthusiast, you want to have hope that they can contend, but it's going to take a drastic shift in mindset to make that happen. And also, you want to make sure that your players are healthy. You want to stop having Tom Thibodeau try and run every single player of his into the dirt. It's going to take that too. They have to be somewhat refreshed to an extent prior to playing in games with those high kind of stakes. Because, as it's been outlined by pretty much every person, including myself, especially who covered it last year, we know exactly what happened to the Knicks. You know, you get out of the first round and then you just go on. And in the heat of a very great rivalry between the Knicks and Pacers in the second round, you're losing guys left and right as they all drop out due to injuries. And then the extent of these injuries just carry over in some regard. I mean, literally, for them to have to settle for just a little bit of an already limited Mitchell Robinson and then get him back in full just a few days ago. And all of this is stemming from an injury that happened last year. Like, there's too much wear and tear. They have to be replenished in that regard in some way, or they're not going to be able to go as hard as you would like them to in those moments. No rejuvenation process, no nothing, just straight up 48 minutes of basketball up and down the court. Like, I don't know how sustainable that truly is. I'm not going to lie to you. Moving on to the Thunder, and they have been 5-1 to start out this stretch of games after the All-Star break. They got back-to-back wins against the Jazz and the Timberwolves with scoring exactly 130 points, as I mentioned. They also did end up losing in the back-to-back against the Timberwolves before going on another 3-game winning streak, all with games that saw them go on the road and defeat the Nets by 8, especially in the second half. Though, again, as I mentioned when I covered the Nets, for them to have to come from behind as greatly as they did against a team like that, I don't know. But it was a great game all around for all parties involved. I mean, Aaron Wiggins had 24 points. Chet Holmgren had 22 points and 17 rebounds. Jalen Williams had 22 points on 8 of 16 shooting, while adding 5 rebounds of his own. And Shai Gilgeous-Alexander had 27 points on just 11 shots. You then saw them knock off the Hawks by 16, as I mentioned, with Shai putting up 31 in that one. And then you also had, to open up March, the Thunder playing the Spurs on the 2nd in a game that I watched on ESPN. And, I mean, they were actually like, yes, okay, the Thunder won by 14, but watching it in real time, bro, the teams were getting in their fucking bags. Everybody was just making shots straight up, pure. Every single player you can think of, especially in the first half, was just hitting shot after shot. I mean, Cason Wallace was getting shit to fall. Jalen Williams was hitting, especially. We'll definitely talk about his output by the end of this. Aaron Wiggins was hitting shots. Alex Caruso was getting buckets to go. And then for the Spurs, you even had guys like Julian Champagnie coming off the bench and hitting shots at timely moments. Jeremy Sochan with his broken-ass jumper was getting fucking 3 points. It was a 3-point fest. Like the Spurs in this game, it got so bad. The Spurs in this game set a record for the most three-pointers in a first half in their franchise history with 16. They were playing so far out of their element, and it still wasn't enough because even after they get the final bucket of their first half here with Stephon Castle getting the layup, you had Jalen Williams get the buzzer beater, essentially, to make it a 5-point ball game. It seems like after a while, the Thunder were able to ride that momentum, and they would get the win there. There was also a fight between Julian Champagnie and Kenrich Williams, of all people. Just a lot of miscommunication, I guess. They got into it, and yeah, 4 different players were given a tech, and Lucius Dort, Julian Champagnie, and Kenrich Williams were all ejected from the ball game, with Sochan just settling for a tech 8. Quite the weird spot to be in, I guess. That really must have just motivated the Thunder, though, because with that, they would secure their 39th win by 10 or more points this season, which is tied for the most all-time for any team in any season through 60 games. They shot an elite percentage all over the court, and they were able to win on the glass, securing extra possessions and ultimately creating some distance here. Jalen Williams had 41 points, 6 rebounds, and 6 assists, a career high for him, all without turning the ball over a single time, on 15 of 24 shooting and also 4 threes. Shai Gilgeous-Alexander also had 31 points and 8 rebounds on 10 of 19 shooting. Cason Wallace had 19 points, Aaron Wiggins had 17 points, and Alex Caruso had 10. Isaiah Hartenstein also had 10. There would be no Chet Holmgren in this ball game because he was injured with an ankle sprain. Now, I had gotten scared when I initially saw the ticker because I thought he was going to miss extended time. But as I will definitely outline the next time I cover the team, yeah, that wasn't going to be the case at all. It was all good. And though it does veer into some content for the next particular video in terms of covering this team, it should be noted that Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, I won't get deep into it. I'll outline the specifics the next NBA video, but he is definitely on a very historical tear right now, and as he continues to do it, his MVP odds are definitely shooting up. I can't deny it. I like literally. There's no way for me to try and say that it's just not the case. Like that's exactly how it is. Moving on to the Magic, who after the All-Star break are 2-4 during this stretch. They sit at 8th in the Eastern Conference, though. They did win a key matchup against the Hawks when you really think about it. I mean, they're in the same division. There's not a great difference in their overall record. So, any matchup you can win against your division opponent at this particular stretch of the season is certainly important. And honestly, with the way that Paolo Banchero played in this ball game, putting up 36 points, 10 rebounds, and 5 assists on 11 of 25 shooting, and Franz Wagner also contributing with 25 points, this win was well-deserved for them. It is great to see, though, that Cole Anthony actually decided to play efficient basketball, getting 17 points on 7 of 13 shooting, and also 5 rebounds and 3 assists and 3 steals. They shot far greater from the field. Though, again, they still have their struggles with spacing the floor. It's horrible to watch. They remain the worst team in the league from that metric. 6 of 25. If they were going to continue doing stuff like that, they weren't going to get away with it too much longer. And that's exactly how it went. Literally, in a 1-point loss, you do have Franz Wagner contributing 20 points. You do have the likes of Wendell Carter Jr. getting a double-double. You have Paolo Banchero putting up 21. And you have Cole Anthony getting a 17.9 rebound and 7 assist ball game as a starter once again. But especially looking at Banchero, the fact that he needed 21 shots and shooting, and also shot far below an acceptable efficiency from the field. Like 5 of 21. We talking about anywhere around fucking 23 to 24% from the field for a player that's supposed to be considered as one of the best young players. That's not a great showing. And as I mentioned, it was a tough win for the Grizzlies, but again, just untimely misses. I mean, they shot relatively the same in terms of, makes from 3-point distance, but, I mean, they shot bad. Both teams. 21.2% for the Grizz and 29% for the Magic. That's not going to get you anywhere. But the Grizzlies were more timely with their makes, it seemed. They did get a 20-point win against the Wizards. Just the Wizards. As Anthony Black would lead the way there. And then you had them suffer a 3-game losing streak. As I covered with the Cavs on national television, they got their asses kicked. As I covered with the Warriors, Stephen Curry was just too much to handle. That's despite Paolo Banchero putting up 41 points and 5 assists of his own on 16 of 27 shooting. And also Franz Wagner adding 27 points on 11 of 22 shooting. Still, it just wasn't enough. The 3-pointers were literally too much. They shot better from the field, but they didn't even make nearly as many threes as they would have needed to keep pace. And also, from the physical standpoint, to allow the Warriors to make and shoot pretty much double the amount of makes in attempts you had at the stripe in a ball game like this. Oof. They then lost by 2 to the Raptors to close out this particular stretch, and I've got a strong feeling that would continue, but that's for the next video. Moving on to the 76ers, and oh boy, yes, a report literally just came through about an injury. We all know what it is. But that isn't even the biggest news really pertaining to any sort of injury anywhere. We already know that the 76ers are fucked. And the fact that they were 1-4 over this stretch pretty much displays that also. Again, yet another team that I've got a feeling is trending in the wrong direction. But I'm not going to cover it right now. What I am going to do is tell you that there would be a report that stated that they would at least have Joel Embiid sit down for a second, and for a little while, they were still in limbo in terms of what exactly to do with him as far as the rest of this particular season went. Then, a report last week stated that he would be out for the rest of the season in order for him to get surgery on this goddamn lower body injury. No more Joel Embiid. When he was playing, it was still almost as if, especially with some of the games that led up to the All-Star break, he was playing and, he would get a decent amount of points, but it didn't even feel like he was really mobile at all. He didn't feel like much of a factor in anything. And even in the last particular, game that he would play, it literally, you couldn't even tell me that he was on the court at all. You lost to the Celtics to open up this particular stretch of your season, as I mentioned, and that was just a terrible game overall from a team defense standpoint. They literally, as well, again, just 20.5% from beyond the arc. As I mentioned when I got to the Celtics earlier in the video, you can't space the floor. You can't stop a team hell-bent on spacing the floor from doing exactly what they please. You're going to get screwed over. Yeah, Embiid, 15 points, just 3 of 9 shooting, no threes. This next game on February 22nd against the Nets saw them actually lose by 2. With, again, the Claxton game winner. In this one, Embiid had just 14 points, 7 rebounds, and 5 assists on 4 of 13 shooting from the field with no threes on 6 attempts. In a 2-point ball game, as long as you make just one. And it wasn't, it literally could not bring himself to do it. So the news would come in after these games against the Bulls and Knicks, which saw them just continue to go down a losing path. Losing by 32 and allowing Josh Giddey to go absolutely dumb. And then on the 26th, losing by 5 to the Knicks, as I mentioned. They would also manage somehow, some way, despite being as depleted as possible, and despite Tyrese Maxey in this ball game against the Warriors for the longest time being held scoreless, they actually did pull off the upset. Why exactly did this happen? We're going to finally answer this question. Quentin Grimes had one of the flukiest performances I've ever seen in my fucking life. Curry is doing his best to ball out in the 76ers arena, and meanwhile, this dude, Quentin Grimes, takes it upon himself to play against the Warriors like he is fucking... Oh my gosh, bro. Like, this man, I'm not gonna lie to you. He tried to turn into Portland Dame. He tried to turn into the Portland version of Damian Lillard. That's exactly what the fuck happened here. 44 points. A career high for him. By far. He shot 75% from the field. And also 67% from 3. He was drawing fouls at will, too. Literally going downhill and getting physical with niggas and baiting them into fouls. The big fuck you to him would be given to him multiple times, though. Because if there's one thing that could have severely cost the 76ers the ball game, it was the fact that they could not convert free throws. And that mostly stemmed from Quentin Grimes' inefficiency there. Especially late, too. Like in a sequence where he drew the foul and making at least just one of them could have ended the ball game right there. He missed both. That just being part of a night in which he shot just 25% from the stripe. But again, they also got other players to contribute as well. For Tyrese Maxey to just shoot 2 of 14 from the field and get 5 points, he did contribute 11 assists on the night. Andre Drummond had 10. Kelly Oubre Jr. had 20 on 6 of 13 shooting. Paul George had 17 and hit some timely shots late as well. And Gaston Yabusele had 18 points on 5 threes, along with 5 assists and 6 boards. So a strong way to end off this particular stretch, but it's not going to be enough. Because again, with that news coming in, and then with more and more madness piling up, there's not really a great chance that they can recover from all of this. They have sunk too far. Yeah. It's just, like, nothing is really going to give at this point. Alright. Moving on to the Suns. Their Suns. Who, after their All-Star break, during their stretch of action, they have been 2-5 since the All-Star break. Man, it's just, it is actually, like, it's bad. It's bad. They did manage to get their 2 wins against the Bulls and the Pelicans. And the only reason that's the case is because, again, they do happen to have a worse record than, or about the same record as the Bulls at this particular time. But they obviously have the stronger team, so naturally they're going to be able to overpower a team like the Bulls, as I mentioned, and like the Pelicans, as I mentioned. But, aside from that, they did hold the Pelicans to 108, keep that in mind. But in every other game after this time, they have allowed over 115 points. In every single one. Every one. This is already a much maligned defense who we know can't guard shit. And these games, especially leading up to the end of February, are just a percentage, just a sheer microcosm of what the hell happened for them in the month of February on defense. Like, I kid you not. They were by far the worst defense in any metric you can think of since the start of that month. You can go with offensive rating. You can go with efficiency from the field in terms of different spots on the court. Anything like that. They were just downright awful. You lose by 18 to the Raptors after that Bulls win. Obviously, I mentioned the game against the Grizzlies. Like, damn, honestly, if you're going to give up all those points that consistently, you don't deserve to win a game like that. And you're just accentuating the Grizzlies stretch because they are the only team to have multiple 150-point games coming into this one, and you gift-wrap them another one. You didn't go down without a fight, but, like, goddamn, where is the defensive resistance when you need it? They allow 124 points to the Pelicans in their third straight loss over this time before winning the back-to-back. And then to open up March, as I mentioned, they got their asses kicked against the Timberwolves, while allowing 116 points to them. Like, what they gotta understand, it's not, they're not gonna do anything if they can't even guard some of the worst players on these respective teams. Okay, you like that is just crazy to me, dog. It is insanity. All right, moving on to the Trailblazers, and one of the weirdest twists I've ever seen in this particular, honestly, over the past few years of the NBA, quite frankly, a lot of weird stuff happens, but the turnaround that the Trailblazers have went on is absolutely perplexing to me. They have been 4-2 since the All-Star break, and they've generally been one of the best teams in the NBA in terms of overall record since the very start of February. It's very odd, honestly. I don't know what to make of it, but I mean, I guess, they got beaten by LeBron, Luka Doncic, and the Lakers to start things out on the 20th. And then, as I mentioned, they eventually went on a 4-game winning streak, beating Charlotte by 53, as I mentioned. They got a nice win against the Jazz by 2, with Anthony Simons leading the way with 28 points and also dishing out 6 dimes on 10 of 23 shooting. Scoot Henderson had 17 points off the bench, and Shaedon Sharpe also had 12 points off the bench on 5 of 13 shooting. They shot way worse from 3, but they were able to get a sort of advantage at the line. They shot slightly better overall from the field, and they just dominated down low, quite frankly. They were able to beat the Wizards by 8 with Shaedon Sharpe. Jeez. Shaedon Sharpe, honestly, like, even if the 6th Man of the Year award may go elsewhere, it can't be denied that since they have moved him to this particular role in the squad, he's been doing some pretty good stuff for them. And it culminated in this performance right here. A 36-point, 8-rebound, and 5-assist ball game on 13 of 26 shooting, along with 3 threes made, as he also, during this game, managed to take the complete soul out of Justin Champagnie on one of the best dunks of the season to this point, bar none. For what it's worth, Scoot Henderson also added 16 points. Anthony Simons had 16 points on damn near similar splits. Jeremy Grant had 15, though 4 of 14 shooting isn't great. Chris Murray even managed to get in the ballgame and get 12. Jabari Walker also managed to get in and get 12 as well. Timani Kamara had 11 as well. Danny Avdija was taken out of the ballgame, it looks like, due to an injury of some kind. To close out the month, they would cap off their 4-game winning streak with a very convincing one against the Nets by 12, as I mentioned, with Shaedon Sharpe now getting a starting role and going off for 25 points on 9 of 14 shooting. Delano Banton pretty much took over the Shaedon Sharpe role and had 23 points of his own off the bench on 8 of 11 shooting. Timani Kamara had 19, and Scoot Henderson had 12 points and 9 assists along with 3 steals. Like, Nets are definitely trash. But for them to shoot 57.7% from the field overall, that by far gave them the advantage. And also their ability to space the floor. They were very paltry from the stripe, just 59.3%. In any other context, that would not get you a victory. But they're just on a tear right now, so I guess you'll accept it. And again, as I mentioned earlier on in the video, they managed to take the Cavs to overtime somehow. In a game that saw them put up 129 points as a team, and also a game that saw Danny Avdija nab his first triple-double in his NBA career with 30 points, 12 rebounds, and 10 assists on 8 of 13 shooting. Manny Camara had 19 points. And also, coming into this game, he did get recognized, weirdly enough, as the Western Conference Defensive Player of the Month. Now, I haven't seen too many Trailblazers performances. Now, I cannot attest to that. But that is something. I guess I can no longer ask who the fuck is he, because he may truly be making a name for himself. And also, with the way the Trailblazers have been playing, they are right on the Suns' tail in the standings. So if things continue to go this well for them, they can actually usurp them. And that would be so fucking terrible. I'm not going to lie to you. Do you know what kind of message that was sent? Oh my gosh. Goodness gracious. Alright. Moving on to the Kings. They've only played 4 games since the end of the All-Star break. And they have been 3-1. They did lose to the Warriors to open things up by 24, as I mentioned. And then got a major win, again, albeit against a very terrible Hornets team. But to win by 42 and at the very same time have Zach LaVine come in the ball game and put up 42 points, 3 rebounds, and 2 assists on 16 of 19 shooting from the field, along with an 88% clip from 3. Really, there's not much to write home about anyone else's performance here. Certain players were able to hit their shots when they did. I mean, like Devin Carter got a few reps in 7 minutes. He hit 3 threes and got 9 points. Well, minor stuff like that was going on for them. And it all worked out, but it was definitely facilitated by Zach LaVine. There's no mistake to be made about it. For shits and gigs also, should be noted that the Kings now have Markelle Fultz. So that is quite the experience. They shot 54% from deep in this one. Well, 52.6% from deep in this one, 54% from the field overall, and also 88.9% from the free throw line. Total domination. Textbook definition of domination. They beat them silly in fucking transition. And they were very opportunistic on defense in a game that saw both teams turn the ball over at a relatively high rate. They then won against the Jazz by 17 with a score of 118-101 to close out their February gameplay. And then to open up March, they got a 113-103 win against the Rockets. They currently sit at 9th in the Western Conference. So as long as they can continue to surge up, they can at least make things interesting. There could be a hindrance to that because currently Domantas Sabonis is missing time right now. They have Jonas Valanciunas starting. We will see how that goes. Moving on to the Spurs. I'm gonna be honest, man. A lot has happened for them just after this All-Star break alone. I mean, when it gets into the record, they are 2-5 over this stretch of time. But so much plays into that, especially with the news that they've been getting. Man, they would have their match against the Suns that I did watch to open things up after this. And in it, Wembanyama did not appear, but the Spurs would get the win, though. I don't know how they did it, because just before the game even tipped off, from a report earlier in the day, it was reported that Victor Wembanyama was diagnosed with something called deep vein thrombosis. It was found in his shoulder, and due to it, because it has something to do with a sort of, I guess, not necessarily a mass, I'll say, but they found something in the blood cell that should not be in the blood cell in that particular shoulder. So it's going to have to be treated, and with that, he would be out for the rest of the season. In a very good sophomore year for him. He literally, so much going down with all the different metrics pertaining to historical stat lines and things like that, with the fact that he had been on a very long streak in terms of games with at least a block. Just things like that. Like, the talent cannot be denied. But health, in that regard, obviously comes first. And it shocked a lot of people. The Spurs players before and after would voice their feelings on the matter, and obviously they would definitely back him. They were obviously crushed, but for them, as far as this game went, they played motivated. They had 7 different players put up double digits in this one. De'Aaron Fox obviously led the way with 26 points, 9 rebounds, and 7 assists. But you also had double-doubles from both Chris Paul starting and Stephon Castle off the bench. Like, they managed to keep pace with the Suns in terms of three-point percentage, but they also won the battle by just getting downright physical in making sure that they protected the ball while converting on all of the extra opportunities that they got from their turnovers. Things would go on a very bad losing streak for them. And even during this stretch, more terrible news would come out. They would drop games against the Pistons by 15, the Pels in a back-to-back by 18 and 6, as I mentioned, and also by 12 against the Rockets. I believe before that particular game, Greg Popovich actually had a meeting with the players and staff, and he told them straight up he was not going to return to coaching this season, and that honestly his future in coaching was very uncertain. Now, obviously, Popovich had suffered a stroke earlier in the season that had him sidelined, and obviously they have been having Mitch Johnson over there handling the reins for this period of time. It looks like it will stay that way for a while, as the main focus for Popovich is recovery from that. Like, that's just crazy. You know, the man is, I believe, 76 years old. For anyone to be dealing with a stroke at that particular age is definitely not, it's a very daunting ordeal to confront. And you want to make sure that they continue to monitor it properly and treat everything accordingly. Like, you know, the game of basketball will get people too fucking ramped up. You can't coach. Like, that's obvious. It definitely sucks. It's terrible, but you can only hope that he can recover from it. To open up their March, they would split with a win against the Grizzlies by 2, as I mentioned, with De'Aaron Fox getting the game winner. And then also in this loss to OKC, as I covered earlier, it wasn't without a fight. Literally. I mean, Stephon Castle, especially. He had 32 points on total 21 shooting, along with 8 rebounds and 3 assists off the bench, while getting some pretty good plays in there. He had an acrobatic layup in the paint. He crossed the shit out of Isaiah Hartenstein, too. No, when you watch it, he didn't trip him. He cleanly crossed his ass. Cleanly. There was no doubt about that one. I mean, oh my gosh. Just absolute craziness. But again, you know, they're 13th in the Western Conference. Realistically speaking, when looking at the record, they're not that far behind. They could go on any run of any sort. I mean, they're right in the mix for play-in contention. But obviously, with them being a little depleted, I don't necessarily think they can make it happen. And it might just be what it is. Okay. Moving on to the Raptors, who've also been 2-4 over this time. They lost to the Heat by 9, as I mentioned. They lost to the Suns by 18, as I mentioned. They then lost 3 straight games to the Celts, Pacers, and Bulls, as I mentioned earlier in the video. They also did manage somehow to pull off a win against the Magic by 2, with Emmanuel quickly putting up 24 points. They're not making a run for the play-in. They are just too bad at this point. It really doesn't get much simpler than that. All right, moving on to the Jazz, who over this particular stretch of time, they have been 2-4 as well. They lost big time to the Thunder, as I mentioned. They did get a pretty good win against the Rockets here with a score of 124-115, with Keontae George putting up 30 points off the bench, 8 rebounds, and 6 assists on 10 of 17 shooting, all with just a single turnover. For a man that is been very turnover prone and very inefficient from the field for the longest time, that's definitely a great turnaround for a game for him. Lauri Markkanen had 23 points and 10 boards. Walker Kessler had 11 points and 17 boards. And in a starting role, weirdly enough, Isaiah Collier actually had 12 points and 10 assists. So that was rather interesting. They would then lose a couple ball games in a row as I mentioned, they did lose to the Trailblazers by 2. Though Kyle Filipowski had 20 points, 11 rebounds, and 5 assists in this one on 6 of 11 shooting. Bryce Sensabaugh had 21 points as well. Keontae George, what did I tell you? 6 of 22 shooting on 21 points. We're running right back to those ways. It's crazy to watch. And then in this matchup against the Kings, Walker Kessler would actually nab 25 points and 14 boards along with 5 assists on perfect shooting from the field. Not from the line. That would have been great. But, hey, hitting all 10 of your shots, obviously some of them are just simple layups, some of them are lobs, but you're doing your job at that point. And it still wasn't enough because Jordan Clarkson decided to play 31 minutes, and shoot 1 of 14 from the field. Not making any threes on 8 attempts and contributing just 2 points to the ballgame. That's fucking atrocious. That's exactly why they lost. That again, sticks out like a sore fucking thumb. There's no shot that should be happening. They did manage to upset the Timberwolves, if you really think about it. They got a 1-point victory against them. John Collins had 29 points and 12 boards to lead the way for them on 12 of 18 shooting. Bryce Sensabaugh had 17 off the bench. Kyle Filipowski had 11 points and 13 rebounds off the bench on 5 of 10 shooting. Even KJ Martin this time got in there and notched 11 points on perfect shooting from the field and 4 boards. Isaiah Collier also had 11 points and 14 assists for what it's worth on 4 of 8 shooting. To open up March, though, they would drop their match against the Pelicans, as I mentioned. They lost by 7, though they did actually get a few players to play relatively well. Bryce Sensabaugh, the Ohio State man, with another 21-point ball game in him on 9 of 18 shooting. Oscar Tshiebwe also made his, I think this is his debut with the Jazz. In 20 minutes off the bench, he had 16 points and 13 boards on 8 of 9 shooting from the field. That's pretty good. Keontae George also had 28 points off the bench and 6 assists. But the Jazz we know exactly what they are at this point. They're the worst team in the Western Conference. And now moving on to the Wizards, who are the worst team in the league, though they have managed to reach double-digit wins. They have managed to do it over this stretch. They were 2-3. They lost by 3 to the Bucks, as I mentioned. They lost to the Magic by 10. They won against the Nets by 8, as I mentioned. They lost to the Trailblazers by 8, as I mentioned. And they also did get a win against the Hornets somehow. Really embarrassing stuff if you're them. But honestly, you're on the same plane. So again, in a battle of teams who are just terrible, yeah, you're bound probably to make something happen there. But that'll do it for this one. I hope you guys enjoyed the video, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace.